Chloe Bennett stared at her phone, watching the tiny check marks turn blue across 14 executive contacts. Her voice message, the one where she called her boss an arrogant, dangerously attractive control freak, had just been delivered to every single person in Ethan Moretti's inner circle. In a world where careers died over coffee orders and people disappeared for asking questions, she had just committed professional suicide. Or worse. The phone buzzed, a text from Ethan himself. "My office. Now." If you want to know what happens when a chaotic assistant accidentally challenges the most dangerous mafia boss in Manhattan, stay with this story until the end. Don't forget to like and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has traveled. The elevator to the 72nd floor moved in complete silence. Chloe watched the numbers climb, each one a countdown to whatever nightmare waited behind Ethan Moretti's office door. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd tried 6 different ways to spin this in her head, 6 different explanations that might save her, and every single one collapsed under the weight of what she'd actually said. Arrogant, dangerously attractive, control freak. She'd said it out loud, into her phone. While lying on her apartment floor at 11:30 at night, half drunk on cheap wine and exhaustion, venting to her best friend about another 16-hour day of impossible demands and last-minute changes. Except she hadn't pressed the right button. She hadn't sent it to Maya. She'd sent it to the executive distribution list. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open onto the executive floor, all glass and steel, and the kind of silence that cost money to maintain. Ethan's office sat at the far end, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, like he owned every light below. Which, in several very literal ways, he did. Chloe's heels clicked against marble. Each step felt like walking toward an execution she'd scheduled herself. The receptionist, Miranda, perfectly composed as always, didn't even look up. "He's expecting you." That somehow made it worse. Chloe reached the double doors, hesitated, then pushed through. Ethan Moretti sat behind his desk, perfectly still, in the kind of custom suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes that missed absolutely nothing. He didn't look up when she entered. He was reading something on his tablet, one hand resting against his temple, the picture of control. The silence stretched. Chloe cleared her throat. "Mr. Moretti, Close the door." His voice came out flat, quiet. Somehow that was worse than yelling. She closed the door. The click of the latch felt final. Ethan still didn't look at her. He swiped something on the screen, set the tablet down with precise care, then finally raised his eyes. "Tell me," he said. "What exactly goes through someone's mind when they decide to send a voice message like that to my entire executive team?" Chloe's prepared explanations dissolved. It was an accident. An accident. He repeated the word like he was testing it for structural integrity. "You accidentally recorded a message, accidentally selected the wrong distribution list, accidentally hit send." "Yes." "That's 3 separate accidents in sequence." "I was tired. I just finished the Henderson contracts and the revised projections you wanted by midnight, and Do you think I care about your excuses?" The question came out so cold it stopped her mid-sentence. Ethan stood. He moved around the desk with the kind of controlled precision that made Chloe think of predators. Not the loud, obvious kind, the kind that waited. He stopped 3 feet away from her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath. 14 people, Ethan said quietly. 14 executives who report directly to me received that message. Do you understand what you've done? I've embarrassed you. You've compromised me. His eyes didn't blink. In my world, perception is power. You just gave 14 people the impression that my own assistant thinks I'm a joke. That's not what Arrogant, control freak. His voice stayed level, almost conversational. That made it more terrifying. You're right, of course, on both counts. But the moment you said it out loud to people who work for me, you became a problem. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs. I'll resign. No. The word came out so simply she almost didn't process it. What? You think I'd let you walk away? Ethan tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle with missing pieces. You think you get to blow up 3 years of carefully maintained reputation and then just disappear to some other job? Then what do you want? Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. It didn't reach his eyes. I want you to understand consequences, he said, real ones. He moved past her, close enough that his shoulder almost brushed hers, and picked up a folder from the side table. When he turned back, his expression had shifted into something that might have been amusement if it weren't so sharp. You're familiar with the Castellano deal? Chloe blinked at the sudden shift. Yes, the acquisition. You've been negotiating for 8 months. 11 months. We close in 6 days. He held out the folder. You're going to help me finish it. She took the folder automatically, confusion cutting through her fear. I don't understand. I'm your assistant, not a deal negotiator. You're about to be both. Ethan returned to his desk, leaning against the edge. The Castellanos are old-fashioned. They believe in loyalty, tradition, family. They've been reluctant to sell because they don't trust corporate raiders. You're not a corporate... Chloe stopped herself. His eyebrow lifted. Go on. She swallowed. Nothing. Smart. He crossed his arms. I've convinced them I'm different, that I value personal relationships, long-term vision, integrity. Your little voice message threatened that perception. So you're firing me. I'm promoting you. He said it like a threat. As of tomorrow morning, you're my executive liaison for the Castellano acquisition. You'll be present at every meeting, every dinner, every negotiation session. You'll live in my apartment during the deal closure to maintain complete availability. The words hit her like a truck. Live in your... You have a problem with that? That's insane. That's consequence. Ethan's voice went quieter. You wanted to call me a control freak? Perfect. For the next 6 days, I'm going to control every single aspect of your professional life. You'll see exactly how arrogant I can be when someone threatens what I've built. Chloe's hands tightened on the folder. This is punishment. This is education. He pushed off the desk, moving toward her again. You're sharp, Chloe. Sharper than you realize. You see things other people miss. That's why I kept you as my assistant instead of replacing you like I do everyone else. She hadn't known that. Hadn't known she was different. But sharp without discipline is just chaos, Ethan continued. And chaos gets people killed in my world. The phrase hung in the air. My world. Not the corporate world. Not the business world. Something else. Chloe had heard the rumors, of course. Everyone had. Ethan Moretti came from money, but not the right kind. Old New York families whispered about his father, about connections that went deeper than Wall Street, about the kind of power that didn't show up in Forbes lists. She'd always assumed they were exaggerating. Looking at him now, she wasn't sure. What if I say no? She asked quietly. Then you'll find out exactly how arrogant I can be. His smile didn't touch his eyes. And trust me, you don't want that version of this conversation. Chloe's mind raced. This was insane. Moving into his apartment, playing some role in a high-stakes deal she knew nothing about, being under his control for 6 days straight. One condition, she heard herself say. Ethan's expression shifted, surprise maybe. You're negotiating? If I'm going to do this, I want something in writing. After the deal closes, you give me a real position, not assistant. Something that actually uses what I'm capable of. Silence. Then Ethan laughed. Actually laughed, low and rough. You just committed career suicide and now you're demanding a promotion. You said I'm sharp. Prove it wasn't just manipulation. He studied her for a long moment. Then he moved back to his desk, pulled out a sheet of letterhead, and wrote something in precise handwriting. He signed it, dated it, and slid it across the desk. After the Castellano deal closes successfully, Chloe read aloud, Chloe Bennett will be promoted to Director of Strategic Operations with appropriate compensation and equity. She looked up. You're serious? I'm always serious. Ethan's expression remained unreadable. But understand something. If you fail, if you embarrass me again, if you cost me this deal, that paper becomes worthless and you become a very cautionary tale. Chloe swallowed hard. Then she picked up the pen on his desk and signed her name below his. When do I start? You already have. Ethan checked his watch. Car arrives at your apartment at 7 tomorrow morning. Pack for a week. Professional wardrobe. The Castellanos are meeting us for dinner tomorrow night. I don't have... There's a clothing allowance included in your new role. Miranda has the details. He picked up his tablet again, dismissing her. Don't be late, Chloe. I don't tolerate tardiness. She turned toward the door, then stopped. Why are you really doing this? Ethan didn't look up. I told you, consequences. No. She turned back. You could have just fired me. This is something else. For a second, something flickered in his expression. Then it was gone. Get some sleep, he said. You're going to need it. Ishit. The car that arrived at 7 the next morning was not the company sedan Chloe expected. It was a black Mercedes with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he could break someone in half without breaking a sweat. He held the door open without a word. Chloe climbed in, her hastily packed suitcase loaded in the trunk, and found Ethan already inside. He was reading something on his phone, dressed in another perfectly tailored suit, looking like he'd slept a full 8 hours despite it being barely dawn. Morning? Chloe said. He glanced up. His eyes tracked over her appearance. The dress she'd bought at 2 in the morning from an all-night boutique, the heels that were killing her feet already, the makeup she'd applied in near darkness. That'll work, he said, which somehow felt like both a compliment and a criticism. The car pulled into traffic. The Castellanos, Ethan said, setting his phone down. Tell me what you know. Chloe pulled out the folder he'd given her, which she'd stayed up until 4 reading. Family-owned manufacturing business, 4th generation, based in Brooklyn. Revenue around $200 million, but undervalued assets in real estate and patents. Marco Castellano runs operations. His sister Sophia handles finance. And they've refused 3 previous acquisition offers because they don't trust outside buyers to maintain their employees and legacy. Why do they trust me? Chloe hesitated. Because you convinced them you're not just another corporate raider. How? She thought about the notes she'd read, the careful strategy spelled out in the margins. You've spent a year building a relationship, dinners, family events, showing interest in their history. You made it personal. And what does that tell you about how we approach tonight's dinner? That it's not actually about business. Good. Ethan's expression remained neutral, but she thought she caught approval in his tone. The Castellanos value family, loyalty, tradition. They need to believe we're people they can trust, not just a balance sheet. We? You're my executive liaison. That means you're part of the narrative now. He turned to look at her directly. They're going to ask about you, your background, your role, why you're suddenly involved. What are you going to tell them? Chloe's mind raced. The truth? Which is that I was your assistant and you promoted me because you saw potential. Boring, predictable. Ethan shook his head. Try again. What do you want me to say? I want you to think. His voice sharpened. This is the test, Chloe. You're sharp. You see things. What story makes sense for what the Castellanos need to believe? She stared at him, then at the folder in her lap, then back at him. They need to believe you value people, she said slowly, that you notice talent, that you promote from within, that you build teams based on merit, not politics. Better, keep going. So I'm proof. I'm the assistant who got promoted because I worked hard and showed initiative. I'm the person who proves you're not just another ruthless executive. And what does that make you? Your success story. Ethan smiled. Actually smiled, and this time it almost reached his eyes. Now you're learning. The car turned onto the FDR Drive, Manhattan sliding past the tinted windows. One more thing, Ethan said. Tonight at dinner, they're going to test us. Marco especially. He's going to push, ask difficult questions, look for cracks in the narrative. Do not lie. Do not improvise. If you don't know something, defer to me. Understood? Understood. And Chloe? His tone shifted. The Castellanos are traditional. Marco's going to make assumptions about our relationship that have nothing to do with business. Let him. She turned to stare at him. What kind of assumptions? The kind that make this deal feel like family business instead of corporate acquisition. Ethan held her gaze. Can you handle that? The implications settled over her like cold water. You want them to think I want them to see what they want to see. If that happens to include speculation about our personal relationship, it helps the narrative. That's manipulative. That's strategy. He turned back to his phone. Welcome to how real deals get made. Ethan's apartment occupied the entire top floor of a building in Tribeca. Chloe walked through the door and immediately understood why people called him a king. Floor-to-ceiling windows, original artwork that probably cost more than her college education, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, everything precise, controlled, perfect. Your room is down that hall, second door, Ethan said, shrugging off his jacket. Bathroom's private. Office setup is already installed. You have 2 hours before we need to leave for dinner. Chloe found her room. It was bigger than her entire apartment, with a view that made her forget how to breathe. Her suitcase sat on the bed where someone had already placed it, someone who'd had access to Ethan's apartment before she arrived. She tried not to think about that too hard. She unpacked in a daze, hanging up the new clothes she'd charged to the corporate card, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. A knock on the door frame made her turn. Ethan stood there, no jacket now, sleeves rolled up. It was the most casual she'd ever seen him. Somehow it made him look more dangerous, not less. The Castellanos are old-fashioned, he said. That means Marco's going to focus on me and Sophia's going to focus on you. She's going to ask personal questions about your family, your background, your relationship with me. What should I tell her? Enough truth to be believable, not enough to be vulnerable. He leaned against the door frame. She's going to try to connect with you. Female solidarity, shared experience in a male-dominated world. Let her. But don't actually connect. Connection is fine. Weakness isn't. His eyes tracked over her face. You're nervous. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He pushed off the frame. 1 hour, 45 minutes. Wear something that says successful, but not threatening. Sophia needs to like you. He left. Chloe sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection in the window. What the hell had she gotten herself into? The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Private room, one table, everything arranged to feel intimate rather than corporate. Marco Castellanos stood when they entered. He was 60, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that came from building something with his own hands. His sister Sophia was younger, sharper, watching everything with eyes that missed nothing. Ethan. Marco's handshake looked like it could crush bone. Good to see you. Marco. Sophia. Ethan's smile looked genuine. Maybe it was. I want to introduce Chloe Bennett, my executive liaison for our partnership. Partnership, not acquisition. Chloe noticed the word choice. Ms. Bennett. Marco's handshake was firm but not cruel. Ethan mentioned you recently joined his senior team. 3 years as his assistant, Chloe said, keeping her voice steady. He promoted me last week. Assistant to executive liaison. Sophia's smile was warm, but her eyes stayed calculating. That's quite a jump. Chloe has a talent for seeing problems before they become disasters, Ethan said smoothly. I'd be a fool not to use it. They sat. Wine appeared. The first course arrived without anyone ordering. So tell me, Marco said, cutting into his appetizer, how does a young woman end up working for someone as demanding as Ethan? Student loans, Chloe said honestly, and stubborn refusal to quit. Marco laughed. I like that. Sophia was the same, worked in the factory every summer during college, insisted on learning every position before she'd take an office. Because you can't lead people if you don't understand what they do, Sophia said. Right, Chloe? Exactly. Chloe met her eyes. I learned more in my first month as Mr. Moretti's assistant than I did in 4 years of business school. I bet you did. Sophia's smile had an edge now. Ethan has a reputation for being exacting. He has a reputation for being impossible, Chloe said, but I've never worked for anyone who pushed me harder or taught me more. Ethan's hand settled on the table near hers, not touching, but close. A subtle signal. Marco noticed. Of course he noticed. You two work well together, he observed. We've learned to, Ethan said. Chloe keeps me honest. Someone needs to, Sophia said lightly. How do you keep him honest, Chloe? I tell him when he's wrong. The table went quiet. Then Marco laughed, loud and genuine. Oh, I like her. Ethan, you finally found someone with spine. It's a recent discovery, Ethan said dryly. The dinner continued. Wine flowed. Conversation shifted from business to personal, from deals to family stories. Sophia asked about Chloe's background, raised by a single mom, worked her way through state school, first person in her family to graduate college. Marco asked about Ethan's vision for the company, preserving jobs, maintaining quality, building legacy, not just profit. And through it all, Chloe watched Ethan work. The way he listened, really listened, making Marco feel heard. The way he deferred to Sophia on financial questions, respecting her expertise. The way he shifted the conversation away from corporate strategy and toward shared values. He was good, scary good. My father built this company with his hands, Marco said over dessert. Every machine, every employee, every product. He knew them all personally. When he died, he made me promise to protect what he built. That's what I want to help you do, Ethan said quietly. Not change it, protect it. With your resources, with our partnership. Marco studied him for a long moment. Then his eyes shifted to Chloe. What do you think, Ms. Bennett? You're the newest member of his team. You see him clearly. Is he telling me the truth? Every eye at the table turned to her. Chloe set down her wine glass. Her heart hammered, but her voice came out steady. Mr. Moretti is the most driven person I've ever met, she said. But he's driven by building things that last, not just things that profit. Your company fits his vision because it's already what he wants to create everywhere else. That's a very polished answer, Sophia said. It's also true. Chloe met her eyes. I've seen him walk away from deals that would have made millions because they didn't align with his principles. He'll do the same with yours if it doesn't feel right. Silence. Then Ethan's hand moved to cover hers on the table. Just for a second. A brief touch that looked casual but felt deliberate. Marco saw it. His expression shifted into something that might have been satisfaction. I think, he said slowly, we should finalize the terms this week. The car ride back was silent until they were halfway to Tribeca. You did well, Ethan said. Chloe stared out the window. I lied. You told them what they needed to hear. That's the same thing. No. His voice went quiet. Lying is saying something you don't believe. You believe I want to build things that last. You've seen enough to know that's true. She turned to look at him. Have I? You're still here. His eyes met hers. If you thought I was just another ruthless executive, you would have walked away already. But you're curious. You want to know if I'm actually different or if I'm just better at hiding the same bullshit. Which is it? You tell me. He leaned back, watching her. You're the one who sees things. The car pulled up to his building. They rode the elevator in silence. Inside the apartment, Chloe headed straight for her room. She needed space, needed to think, needed to process what had just happened. Chloe. She stopped. Ethan stood in the living room loosening his tie, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. You called me arrogant, he said. You were right. I am arrogant. I'm also calculating, controlling, and occasionally ruthless. But I'm not careless. Everything I do has a reason. Including this? Especially this. He pulled the tie free completely. You think tonight was about the deal. It wasn't. It was about showing you how this world actually works. And how does it work? Everyone's playing a role. The question is whether you're conscious of it or not. He crossed to the bar, poured 2 glasses of something amber, handed her one. Marco and Sophia, they're playing the role of cautious family business. I'm playing the role of principled buyer. You're playing the role of proof that I mean what I say. And behind the roles, Marco's desperate. His company's hemorrhaging cash in 3 divisions he doesn't talk about. Sophia knows they need to sell or collapse. And I need this acquisition to work because it opens doors to manufacturing infrastructure I can't access any other way. Chloe sipped the drink. It burned. So it's all manipulation. It's all strategy. Manipulation implies someone loses. This way, everyone gets what they need. He raised his glass. Marco saves his father's legacy. Sophia secures her family's future. I get the infrastructure I need, and you? I get used as proof of concept. You get to learn how power actually moves in this world. His eyes stayed on hers. Most people never see behind the curtain, Chloe. They live their whole lives playing roles someone else wrote. You get to see how the roles are constructed. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you smarter. She drained her glass, set it down harder than necessary. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow we meet with Sophia. Just the two of you. Chloe stopped halfway to her room. Why? Because she doesn't trust me yet. But she might trust you. He poured himself another drink. She's going to ask you questions she'd never ask in front of Marco. About me, about our relationship, about whether I'm who I claim to be. What do you want me to tell her? The truth, or close enough. He turned to face her. She's going to ask if we're sleeping together. The heat flooded Chloe's face. We're not. I know. Tell her that. But tell her in a way that leaves room for possibility. Why? Because it makes the narrative stronger. Partners who might become something more are more believable than pure business arrangements. He watched her reaction. Can you handle that? You're asking me to manipulate a woman's trust by implying we have a relationship we don't have. I'm asking you to let her draw her own conclusions. Ethan set his glass down. Sophia's smart. She's going to assume things regardless of what you say. The question is whether you give her a story she can believe or one that makes her suspicious. This is insane. This is how deals work at this level. He moved closer. You want to know why I really kept you? Why I didn't fire you for that voice message? Because I'm useful. Because you're honest about the pretense. His voice dropped. Most people in my world lie to themselves about what they're doing. They tell themselves they're good people making hard choices. You? You called me arrogant and controlling and dangerously attractive, and you meant all three. The words hung in the air between them. That wasn't a compliment, Chloe said. Wasn't it? Something shifted in his expression. You see me clearly, Chloe. That's rare. Most people see what I want them to see. But you see the control freak and the calculation and the danger, and you're still standing here. Because you didn't give me a choice. I gave you several. You chose this one. He stepped back, giving her space. Get some sleep. Sophia wants to meet at 10. Chloe made it to her room before her hands started shaking. Sophia chose a cafe in Soho. Small, quiet, the kind of place where serious conversations happened over good coffee. She was already there when Chloe arrived, 2 cups waiting. I took a guess on your order, Sophia said. Oat milk latte, extra shot? Perfect. Chloe sat down, accepting the cup. Thank you. Marco liked you. Sophia stirred her own coffee. That's not easy to do. He's suspicious of new people. I got that impression. But you handled him well. Honest but not naive. Respectful but not intimidated. Sophia's eyes tracked over Chloe's face. How long have you been sleeping with Ethan? Chloe didn't flinch. I'm not. But you want to. That's... She stopped. Sophia was testing her. That's complicated. Complicated how? We work together. We've worked together for 3 years. That comes with boundaries. Boundaries he's currently violating by having you live in his apartment. It's temporary, for the deal. Is it? Sophia leaned forward. Let me tell you what I see, Chloe. I see a man who never promotes from within, suddenly promoting his assistant. I see someone who keeps his personal life completely private, suddenly bringing you to family dinners. I see the way he looks at you when you're not watching. Chloe's pulse kicked up. How does he look at me? Like you're a problem he can't solve. Sophia smiled. And Ethan Moretti doesn't like unsolvable problems. We're not together, but you could be. I don't know. The honesty came out before Chloe could stop it. Sophia sat back, satisfied. There it is. The truth. This isn't about my personal life. Everything's about personal life at this level. Business is just the excuse. Sophia sipped her coffee. My brother wants to believe Ethan's different from other corporate buyers, that he actually cares about legacy and people, not just profit. You're the proof of that. Because he promoted me. Because he sees you as a person, not just a resource. That's what Marco needs to believe. That's what I need to believe. Her eyes sharpened. So I'm asking you directly, is Ethan Moretti who he claims to be, or is this all performance? The question settled between them. Chloe thought about the past 2 days, the control, the calculation, the careful construction of narrative. Then she thought about the moment in the car when Ethan admitted the role-playing, the way he'd looked at her when he said she saw him clearly. He's both, she said finally. He's absolutely performing, but the performance is built on something real. Meaning? Meaning he does want to build things that last, but he also wants control. He wants your company because it fits his vision, but he's not going to pretend there isn't strategy behind that vision. Sophia studied her for a long moment. You really do see him clearly. I've had 3 years of practice. And what do you see now? Chloe met her eyes. Someone who's brilliant and impossible and maybe actually capable of being different. If he chooses to be. That's a very careful answer. It's an honest one. Sophia's expression softened. My father used to say you can tell everything about a man by how he treats the people with less power than him. Marco thinks Ethan treats you well because he values you. I think he values you because you're not afraid of him. Should I be? Probably, Sophia smiled, but I don't think you will be, and I think that's exactly what he needs. They finished their coffee, made plans for another meeting, exchanged numbers. On the sidewalk outside, Sophia paused. One more thing, she said. Whatever's happening between you and Ethan, complicated or not, don't let the deal become more important than figuring it out. I've seen too many people sacrifice their lives for business. Did you? Almost. Sophia's smile went sad. That's how I know. Ethan was waiting when Chloe got back to the apartment. He looked up from his laptop when she entered. How did it go? She asked if we were sleeping together. And? I told her we weren't. Chloe crossed her arms. But I let her think we might be. Good. Is it? She moved closer. Because she also asked if you're who you claim to be, and I told her you're both performing and real, and now I'm not sure which part I actually believe. Ethan closed the laptop. Does it matter? You tell me. You're the one who said I see you clearly. You do. That's the problem. Problem for who? Me. He stood. Most people believe what I show them. You question it. That makes you dangerous. To your deal? To my control. He moved around the desk. You want honesty? Fine. Yes, I'm performing for the Castellanos. Yes, I need this deal for strategic reasons. But I also meant what I said to Marco. I do want to build things that last. And me? Chloe heard herself ask. Am I part of the strategy or part of what lasts? Ethan stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes. I don't know yet. That's honest. You wanted honesty. I wanted clarity. They're not the same thing. His jaw tightened. You're sharp, Chloe. You're unpredictable. You see problems I miss and solutions I wouldn't consider. That makes you valuable, but it also makes you a variable I can't control, and you hate that. Yes. He didn't hesitate. But I also need it. Everything in my world is controlled, every outcome predicted, every variable managed. You're the one thing that refuses to fit. Is that why you're really doing this? She stepped closer. Not punishment, testing whether I break or adapt. Maybe. His eyes tracked over her face. Or maybe I wanted to see what happens when I stop controlling everything. The words hung between them. Chloe's phone buzzed. She broke eye contact first, checking the message. Sophia wants to meet again tomorrow, she said. Just us. Good. She's building trust. Or trying to figure out if I'm real or part of your act. Same thing. Ethan returned to his desk. The deal closes in 4 days. After that, you get your promotion and your equity. Everything goes back to normal. Will it? He didn't answer. Chloe went to her room, closed the door, and stared at her reflection in the window. Manhattan glittered below, millions of lights hiding millions of secrets. 4 days until the deal closed. 4 days to figure out which version of Ethan Moretti was real. 4 days to decide if she was playing a role or becoming someone new. She had a feeling 4 days wasn't going to be enough. Chloe woke to the sound of Ethan's voice in the next room. 3 in the morning, according to her phone. She lay still, listening to the low rumble of conversation that didn't sound like business. She shouldn't have gotten up, should have rolled over and gone back to sleep. Instead, she found herself padding barefoot down the hallway, following the sound to Ethan's office. The door was half open, light spilling into the dark corridor. "Don't care what Vincent thinks," Ethan was saying. "The timeline doesn't change." A pause. Someone responding on the other end. "Then make him understand. We've waited 11 months for this. I'm not delaying because he's nervous about exposure." Chloe stopped just outside the door. She should leave. This was private, none of her business. "Vincent needs to remember who handles the problems when things go wrong," Ethan continued, voice dropping to something colder. "And right now, he's becoming a problem." She shifted her weight. The floor creaked. The conversation stopped. A second later, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He'd lost the suit. Gray t-shirt, dark pants, barefoot like her, hair slightly messed. He looked younger, less controlled, more dangerous. "How much did you hear?" he asked. "Enough to know I should probably go back to bed." "Probably." He didn't move from the doorway. "But you won't." "Who's Vincent?" Ethan studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped back, opening the door wider. An invitation. Chloe walked into his office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan spread out like a circuit board. His desk was covered in papers, multiple screens showing spreadsheets and contracts and things she didn't recognize. "Vincent handles certain aspects of my business that don't appear in quarterly reports," Ethan said, closing the door behind her. "The parts that aren't exactly legal. The parts that exist in gray areas." He moved to the bar in the corner, poured 2 glasses of water, handed her one. "Every empire has infrastructure that doesn't show up on balance sheets, Chloe. Vincent manages mine." She should be scared, should be running. Instead, she felt weirdly calm. "And he's nervous about the Castellano deal. He's nervous about visibility." Ethan leaned against his desk. "The acquisition brings scrutiny, audits, regulatory review, media attention. Vincent prefers operating in shadows." "What exactly does he do for you?" "Things I can't do myself. Things that keep the empire running when official channels fail." His eyes stayed on hers. "You want specifics? I want to know what I'm actually part of. You're part of a legitimate business acquisition. What Vincent does is separate. Is it?" Chloe set down her water glass. "Because it sounds like his infrastructure and your empire are pretty connected." "They are. That doesn't make you complicit." Ethan's jaw tightened. "The Castellano deal is clean, Chloe. Everything we're doing with Marco and Sophia is legitimate business. Vincent's concerns are about what happens after, when other people start looking at my entire operation." "Other people like who?" "Competitors, regulators, people who'd like to see me fail." He crossed his arms. "Manhattan's business world isn't just boardrooms and handshakes. There are layers. Some of them require methods that don't appear in Harvard Business Review." "You mean crime? I mean survival." His voice went hard. "You think Marco built his company playing by every rule? You think Sophia got to CFO without learning how to bend regulations? Everyone at this level has infrastructure in gray areas. The difference is I'm honest about it. With me, not with them. Because you asked. They didn't." Ethan pushed off the desk, moving closer. "You want to know the real difference between me and every other person trying to acquire that company? I'm willing to show you the machinery. They just lie and pretend it doesn't exist." Chloe's heart hammered. "Why are you showing me?" "Because you're going to figure it out anyway. You're too smart not to." He stopped a few feet away. "And because I'd rather you know the truth and choose to stay than believe a lie and leave when you discover it." That's honest. It's strategic, but it's also honest. Something shifted in his expression. You called me a control freak. You were right. But control only works if you know what you're controlling. You're unpredictable. That means I either trust you with the truth or I lose you when you inevitably find it. And you don't want to lose me. No. He said it simply. I don't. The admission hung between them. Chloe looked away first, her eyes landing on the papers scattered across his desk. Contracts, financial projections, legal documents, and underneath, partially visible, something that looked like surveillance photos. Ethan followed her gaze, moved to cover them, then stopped. You should see these, he said quietly. He pulled out the photos. Black and white surveillance shots. A man in his 50s, silver hair, expensive suit, meeting with someone Chloe didn't recognize. Exchange of an envelope. Timestamps in the corner showing dates from the past 3 months. Who is that? She asked. Richard Moss, Castellano's CFO for the past 12 years, Sophia's right hand. Ethan laid out 3 more photos. He's been meeting with representatives from Donovan Industries. The same company that made the 3rd acquisition offer? Marco refused. Chloe's stomach dropped. He's selling information. Worse, he's sabotaging. Look at the dates. Ethan pointed to the timestamps. 2 weeks before each of our major negotiation sessions. He's been feeding Donovan our strategy, our offers, our timeline. Does Sophia know? No, neither does Marco. They trust him completely. Ethan gathered the photos. Vincent found this a week ago. He wanted to expose Moss immediately, blow up the deal, walk away. But you didn't. Because that would destroy Marco and Sophia. Their company's already struggling. If their CFO is exposed as a traitor right before the deal closes, it tanks their valuation. They lose everything. Chloe processed this. So you're protecting them? I'm protecting the deal, but yes, that requires protecting them. He met her eyes. The question is how? What do you mean? I can expose Moss now. That destroys their trust, possibly destroys the deal, definitely destroys their company's reputation. Or I can wait until after the acquisition closes, then quietly remove him. That protects Marco and Sophia but leaves them vulnerable until closing, which is in 4 days. 3 days now. Ethan checked his watch, and in those 3 days, Moss could do significant damage if he suspects we know. Chloe stared at the photos. What does Vincent want you to do? Walk away. He thinks the risk is too high, that Moss might be working a longer game, that we're walking into a trap. Ethan's voice stayed level. He's probably right. But you're not walking away. No. Why not? Because Marco's father built something worth preserving. Because Sophia's fought her whole life to protect it. Because walking away means they lose everything while Donovan Industries picks up the pieces. He paused. And because I told them I was different from other corporate raiders. If I walk away now, I'm proving I'm not. Chloe looked up at him. That matters to you. Actually matters, not just strategically. Yes. He didn't hesitate. That's the problem with playing roles, Chloe. Eventually you start believing them. She thought about Sophia's question at the cafe, whether Ethan was who he claimed to be or just performing. So what are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to close the deal in 3 days, and I'm going to make sure Moss can't sabotage it before then. Ethan gathered the photos, locked them in his desk drawer. Which is where you come in. Me? Tomorrow, you're meeting Sophia again. She trusts you. She talks to you about things she won't discuss with Marco or me. His eyes sharpened. I need you to find out what Moss knows, what he's told her, what access he has to the closing documents. Chloe's chest tightened. You want me to spy on her? I want you to protect her from a traitor she doesn't know she has. By lying to her. By gathering information that keeps her safe. Ethan moved closer. In 3 days, this deal closes. Marco and Sophia get security. Their employees keep their jobs. Their father's legacy survives. But that only happens if Moss doesn't destroy it first. And after the deal closes? Moss disappears quietly. No scandal, no exposure, no damage to the company's reputation. Marco and Sophia never have to know their trusted CFO betrayed them. That's not honest. It's kind. His voice dropped. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is protect people from truths that would destroy them. Chloe wanted to argue, wanted to say truth mattered more than protection, but she thought about Marco's face when he talked about his father's legacy. Sophia's careful questions about whether Ethan could be trusted. What do you need me to find out? She heard herself ask. Whether Sophia's shown Moss our latest revised offer, whether he has access to the closing timeline, whether he's been asking questions about post-acquisition structure. Ethan pulled out his phone, showed her a list. These specific items, can you do that? Without her suspecting. You're good at reading people, Chloe. You'll find a way. He put the phone away. And if you can't, if it feels wrong, don't push. I'll find another approach. What approach? One that's messier. One that hurts people I'd rather not hurt. His eyes stayed level. That's why I'm asking you, because your way will be better than mine. The weight of it settled on her shoulders. I should go back to bed, she said. You should. He didn't move. But you're not going to sleep. No, neither am I. Ethan gestured to the windows. Want coffee? They ended up on the terrace, 30 floors above Manhattan, watching the city pretend to sleep. Ethan made espresso in a machine that probably cost more than Chloe's car. They sat in silence, drinking coffee that tasted like it came from somewhere exotic and expensive. How did you get into this? Chloe asked finally. This world of gray areas and infrastructure that doesn't appear on balance sheets. I was born into it. Ethan's voice stayed quiet. My father ran operations in Brooklyn. Not the kind that get written up in the Times. The kind that operate in spaces between legal and illegal. Organized crime. Organized survival. He provided services people needed when official channels failed. Protection, dispute resolution, access to resources. He sipped his espresso. He wanted me to take over. I wanted something different. So you went legitimate. I went strategic. Built a corporate empire that could do legally what he did in gray areas. Turns out the skills transfer pretty well. But you kept the infrastructure. Because completely legitimate doesn't exist at this level. There are always gaps, always moments when official channels aren't enough. Vincent fills those gaps. Chloe watched the city lights. Do you ever regret it? The choice to stay connected to that world? Every day. He set down his cup. And never. It's both. That's honest. You keep saying that like it surprises you. It does. Most people in your position would lie, make themselves sound better, more justified. Most people in my position lie to themselves first. I can't afford that luxury. Ethan turned to look at her. Every choice I make, someone gets hurt. The question isn't whether to avoid harm, it's who gets hurt and why. That's a terrible way to live. It's the only way that works. He paused. Marco and Sophia are good people trying to save their father's company. Moss is a trader selling them out for profit. Donovan Industries wants to strip the company for parts. I can protect Marco and Sophia, but only if I'm willing to operate in gray areas to do it. And that makes it right? It makes it necessary. Right and wrong are luxuries for people with simpler choices. Chloe wanted to argue, wanted to believe morality was clearer than that. But she thought about the photos of Moss, about Marco's desperation to preserve his father's legacy, about Sophia's careful trust. If I help you, she said slowly, if I get the information you need from Sophia, what happens to Moss? He gets removed cleanly. Removed how? He gets a very generous offer from a company in Europe, relocation package, signing bonus, enough to make disappearing attractive. He takes it and goes. And if he doesn't? Ethan's silence was answer enough. I don't want to know, Chloe said. Yes, you do. That's why you asked. He met her eyes. If Moss refuses the generous exit, Vincent handles it. I don't ask how. That's the boundary. I make decisions, Vincent implements them, and I don't examine the implementation too closely. That's cowardice. That's survival. I can't run an empire if I'm personally executing every difficult choice. So I hire people who can do things I can't, and I give them enough autonomy to operate. Even if what they do is illegal. Even then, he didn't flinch. You want me to be a good person, Chloe. I understand that. But good people don't build empires. Good people make small choices that feel right. Empires require big choices that hurt. Is that what you tell yourself? It's what I've learned. His jaw tightened. You think I like this? You think I enjoy knowing Vincent might have to make someone disappear because they threatened what I'm building? I think you've made peace with it. I've accepted it. That's different. Ethan stood, moved to the railing. My father used to say power is the ability to make terrible choices and live with the consequences. I didn't understand what he meant until I started building this. Chloe joined him at the railing. Manhattan spread out below them, millions of people living lives that never touched this level of complexity. Why are you telling me all this? She asked. Because you asked. Because you're going to be part of difficult choices in the next 3 days. Because I'd rather you understand what you're actually agreeing to. And if I say no, if I refuse to help, then I find another way, and it's messier, and people get hurt who don't deserve it. He turned to face her. But you won't refuse. You sound very sure. I am, because you've already started caring about Marco and Sophia. You see them as real people, not just business targets. And you know that protecting them requires making choices that aren't clean. He was right. Chloe hated that he was right. I'll do it, she said. I'll get the information from Sophia, but after this deal closes, we're having a conversation about boundaries. Agreed. Something that might have been relief crossed his expression. Thank you. They stood there in silence as the city started waking up. Garbage trucks, early delivery vans, the first commuters heading to jobs that would never require these kinds of choices. Can I ask you something? Chloe said finally. Always. The voice message, the one I sent by accident. You said it made me a problem, that it compromised your reputation. But you didn't actually answer the real question. Which was? Why you kept me as your assistant for 3 years? Why you didn't replace me like you do everyone else? Ethan was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Because you made mistakes, he said finally. Small ones, coffee orders wrong, meetings scheduled incorrectly, documents filed in the wrong system. Every single mistake was different, never the same error twice. That doesn't sound like a good reason to keep someone. It was the best reason, because it meant you were actually learning. Everyone else made the same mistakes repeatedly, following patterns I could predict and prevent. But you made new mistakes, unpredictable ones. That meant you were actually adapting. So you kept me because I was chaotic. I kept you because chaos that learns is more valuable than perfection that stagnates. He turned to look at her. And because every time I was about to fire you for screwing something up, you do something that proved you were smarter than I gave you credit for. Like what? Like restructuring the Henderson filing system so it actually made sense instead of just following my arbitrary organization. Like flagging the discrepancy in the Morrison contract that my lawyers missed. Like asking questions that exposed flaws in my own logic. He paused. Like calling me arrogant and controlling and dangerously attractive because it was true. Heat crept up Chloe's neck. I was drunk. You were honest. There's a difference. And now I'm living in your apartment and helping you manage a deal that involves surveillance and traders and infrastructure that doesn't appear on balance sheets. Yes. His eyes stayed on hers. Having regrets? Chloe thought about it. About the past 3 days, about everything she'd learned, about the line she'd already crossed, without quite realizing it. Ask me in 3 days, she said. Fair enough? The sun started breaking over the buildings to the east, turning Manhattan gold and orange. I should get ready, Chloe said. Sophia wants to meet at 10. What are you going to tell her? I don't know yet. I'll figure it out when I get there. That's what I'm counting on. Ethan moved toward the door, then stopped. Chloe, whatever you find out today, whatever Moss has access to, don't confront Sophia directly. Just gather information. We deal with Moss after the closing. To protect her. To protect everyone. He held her gaze. In 3 days, this is over. Marco and Sophia are safe, you get your promotion, and everything goes back to normal. Will it? He didn't answer, just disappeared inside, leaving Chloe alone with the sunrise and the weight of choices she hadn't planned to make. She stood there until the city fully woke, until the sky turned from gold to blue, until her coffee went cold in her hands. Then she went inside to get ready to lie to someone who trusted her, for all the right reasons. She hoped. Sophia chose a different cafe this time. Quieter, more private, the kind of place where real conversations happened. She was already there, 2 cups waiting again. "You're good at this," Chloe said, sitting down. "At what?" "Reading people. You ordered exactly what I needed before I knew I needed it." Sophia smiled. "My father used to say business is just reading people and giving them what they want before they ask for it. Everything else is details." Smart man. He was. Sophia's expression went softer. "He would have liked you. You're direct. He hated people who talked in circles." Chloe sipped her coffee, buying time. She'd spent the whole subway ride preparing for this conversation, rehearsing questions that would get the information Ethan needed without arousing suspicion. Now, sitting across from Sophia, all her preparation felt hollow. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said. "And I want a real answer, not a polished one." "Okay. Do you trust Ethan?" The question caught Chloe off guard. "That's complicated." "Complicated how?" "I trust that he wants this deal to work. I trust that he sees value in preserving what your father built." Chloe chose her words carefully. "But I also know he's strategic. Everything he does has multiple layers." "That's not the same as trusting him." "No, it's not." Sophia leaned back, studying her. "At least you're honest about it. Marco thinks I'm paranoid, but I can't shake the feeling that we're missing something." Chloe's chest tightened. "Missing what?" "I don't know, just a feeling. Like this deal is too good to be true, like there's an angle we haven't seen." "Have you talked to anyone else about this? Your CFO, maybe?" "Richard?" Sophia laughed, but it sounded tired. "Richard thinks I worry too much. He's been pushing hard for this deal from the beginning. Says it's our best option. He's probably right." "Probably." Sophia traced the rim of her cup. "But my father also used to say when something feels too good to be true, look for what you're not seeing. And right now, I can't figure out what I'm not seeing." This was it. The opening Ethan needed. Chloe could push now, ask about documents, about what Richard had access to, about the revised offer. But looking at Sophia's face, seeing the genuine worry there, the trust she was placing in this conversation, Chloe felt something crack inside. "What if you're not missing anything?" she said instead. "What if it's just hard to believe someone actually wants to help?" Sophia's eyes sharpened. "You think that's what Ethan's doing? Helping?" "I think he wants to build something. Whether that's helping or just strategic empire building, I honestly don't know yet. But you're trying to figure it out. Every day." Chloe met her eyes. "You asked if I trust him. The truth is I'm still deciding, but I know he's different from other people I've worked for." "Different how?" "He's honest about the manipulation. Most people pretend they're not calculating every angle. Ethan just admits it." Chloe paused. "I think he actually believes that's more ethical, being upfront about the strategy." "Is it?" "I don't know, but at least you know where you stand." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, and turned the screen toward Chloe. It was an email. From Richard Moss to someone at Donovan Industries, dated 2 days ago. Chloe's stomach dropped. "You knew," she said quietly. "I suspected. Found this yesterday going through Richard's sent folder. He'd been sloppy, didn't delete it properly." Sophia's voice stayed level, but her eyes were hard. "He's been feeding them information for months. Everything we discussed with Ethan, every negotiation point, every timeline." "Does Marco know?" "Not yet. I wanted to figure out how deep it goes before I tell him." Sophia put the phone away. "That's why I asked if you trust Ethan. Because right now, he's the only person in this deal who hasn't lied to me. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. If I expose Richard now, it destroys our credibility. Donovan will use it to argue our company is unstable, poorly managed.
It could tank the whole deal. And if you wait, then Richard has 3 more days to cause damage.
Sophia's jaw tightened. So I'm asking you, Chloe, not as Ethan's liaison, as someone I think might actually care. What would you do? The question hit like a weight. Chloe thought about the surveillance photos locked in Ethan's desk, about Vincent's concerns, about the infrastructure that didn't appear on balance sheets, about all the things she'd learned in the past 72 hours about how power actually moved. "I'd tell Ethan," she said finally. "Why?" Because he has resources you don't. Ways to handle this that won't blow up the deal or destroy your company's reputation. Chloe leaned forward. "You're right that exposing Richard publicly would be a disaster, but there might be other options." "What kind of options?" "I don't know the specifics, but Ethan's been doing this a long time. If anyone can figure out how to remove a traitor without causing collateral damage, it's him." Sophia studied her face. "You really believe that?" I believe he wants this deal to work. And right now, that means protecting you and Marco from Richard." Chloe held her gaze. "Let me talk to him, see what he says. And if he uses this against us, then I was wrong about him, and you have the email as insurance." Sophia was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. "Okay, talk to Ethan." "But Chloe?" Her eyes hardened. "If he uses this to manipulate the terms or pressure us into anything we don't want, I'll burn the whole deal down. I don't care about the consequences." "I understand." "Good." Sophia drained her coffee. "Call me after you talk to him. I want to know the plan before I decide whether to tell Marco." They left the cafe together. On the sidewalk, Sophia paused. "You asked what I'd do if I were you," she said. "Figure out fast whether you're working for Ethan or with him, because the first one destroys you eventually. The second one might actually mean something." Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd. Chloe stood there for a moment, processing everything. Then she pulled out her phone and called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. "How did it go?" "We need to talk, in person. I'm in a meeting for the next 2 hours. Cancel it." Chloe's voice came out harder than she intended. "This can't wait." Silence. Then, "I'll be home in 20 minutes. Chloe made it back to the apartment in 15, paced the living room for 5 more, rehearsing what she was going to say, how she was going to handle this. Ethan walked through the door exactly on time. He took one look at her face and went still. "What happened?" "Sophia knows about Moss. She found an email he sent to Donovan Industries. She's known since yesterday." Ethan's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Did she tell Marco?" "Not yet. She wanted to figure out how deep it went first." Chloe crossed her arms. "She asked me what she should do, what I would do if I were her." "What did you tell her?" "That she should tell you, that you have resources to handle this without destroying her company's reputation." Chloe's voice shook slightly. "I lied to her, Ethan. I made her think you just found out, that you're going to help her out of pure goodwill. You did the right thing." "Did I?" She moved closer. "Because right now it feels like I'm manipulating someone who trusted me, someone who's been honest with me while I've been gathering intelligence for you. You protected her from making a choice that would have destroyed everything. By lying. By being strategic." Ethan set down his briefcase. "What else did she say?" "That if you use this information to manipulate the deal terms or pressure them into anything they don't want, she'll burn it all down. Consequences be damned." A smile flickered across his face. "I like her." "This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. I genuinely respect that she's willing to destroy everything to maintain integrity." He moved to the bar, poured himself water. "What did you promise her?" "That you'd have a plan. That you could handle Moss without collateral damage. And can you?" "Vincent can." Ethan's jaw tightened. "But it means moving faster than I wanted. Moss needs to be gone before he realizes Sophia knows." "Gone how?" "The generous exit I mentioned. Tonight. Vincent makes the offer. Moss takes it. Problem solved. And if he doesn't take it, then Vincent solves it a different way." Ethan met her eyes.
Don't ask me for details you don't want to know. Chloe's chest felt tight. This is what you meant, isn't it? About choices that aren't clean. Yes. He didn't look away. You can still walk away, Chloe. Right now. I'll handle this alone. You'll get your promotion after the deal closes, and you never have to think about the machinery again. Would you? Handle it alone. If you asked me to. He paused. But I'd rather have you here. Why? Because you see clearly. You keep me honest about what I'm actually doing, why I'm doing it. Without that, I'm just Vincent with a better suit. The admission hung between them. Chloe thought about Sophia's warning. Figure out whether you're working for Ethan or with him. I'm staying, she said. But I have conditions. Name them. First, Moss gets the generous exit. No other options. I don't care what Vincent prefers. Agreed. Second, after the deal closes, you tell Sophia the truth. Not about Vincent, not about the gray areas, but that you knew about Moss before she did, that you were planning to handle it. Ethan's expression shifted. That could destroy her trust. Or it could build it. She's smart, Ethan. She knows people don't help without reasons. Showing her you were trying to protect her instead of using the information against her might actually matter. He considered this. And if she reacts badly, then you deal with it, but at least it's honest. You're asking me to take a significant risk. I'm asking you to be who you claim to be, someone who's different. Chloe held his gaze. Can you do that? Silence stretched between them. Then Ethan pulled out his phone and made a call. Vincent, the Moss situation moves tonight. Generous exit only, no alternatives. I don't care about his answer. Make the offer attractive enough that he can't refuse. A pause. Yes, I'm sure. Handle it. He hung up. Done? Chloe asked. Done. He looked at her. Anything else? Yeah. After this is over, after the deal closes and the dust settles, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about what exactly I signed up for. Looking forward to it. Something that might have been respect flickered in his expression. You did well today, Chloe. Better than I expected. I lied to someone who trusted me. You protected someone who needed it. There's a difference. He moved closer. Sophia asked you what you'd do in her position. You told her to trust me. That took courage. Or stupidity. Often the same thing. His lips quirked. I need to call her. Confirm the plan. Make sure she feels secure. You should be there. She trusts you more than me. They called Sophia together. Speakerphone on Ethan's desk. I talked to Chloe, Ethan said without preamble. She told me about Moss. And? Sophia's voice came through sharp, controlled. And I'm handling it. Tonight. He'll be gone by morning. No scandal, no exposure, no damage to your company's reputation. How? He's getting an offer from a firm in Switzerland, generous enough that refusing would be insane. He'll take it, relocate, and never be a problem again. You're very confident. I'm very motivated. This deal matters to me, Sophia. I'm not letting a traitor destroy it. Ethan's voice stayed level. You and Marco have been honest with me from the beginning. I'm returning the favor. Silence on the other end, then, why should I believe you? Because Chloe does. He glanced at her, and you trust her judgment. More silence. Chloe could almost hear Sophia thinking. Okay, she said finally. Handle it. But Ethan, if this blows up, if there's any hint of scandal or exposure, I'm telling Marco everything, and we're walking away, deal or no deal. Understood. You won't regret this. I better not. She hung up. Chloe let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. That went better than expected, Ethan said. Did it? Because it feels like we just barely held everything together. Welcome to how deals actually work. Everything's always barely held together until it's not. He checked his watch. Vincent will move on Moss within the hour. By tomorrow morning, the problem's solved. Just like that. Just like that. He looked at her. You should get some rest. Tomorrow's the final negotiation session. Marco, Sophia, their lawyers, our lawyers. 8 hours of hammering out closing details. Fun. Necessary. His expression softened slightly. You've done well these past few days, Chloe. I know it hasn't been easy. It's been terrifying. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. He moved toward his office. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Chloe made it to her room before the shaking started. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands, trying to process everything that had just happened. She'd lied to Sophia, protected a man who operated in gray areas she didn't fully understand, made choices that couldn't be unmade. And somewhere in Manhattan right now, Vincent was making an offer to Richard Moss, an offer that would make him disappear. She should feel guilty, should feel like she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Instead, she felt weirdly calm. Sophia was protected. Marco would never know his trusted CFO betrayed him. The deal would close. Everyone got what they needed, except Moss. But Moss had made his own choices. Chloe's phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. Thank you for telling me to trust him. I hope you're right. Chloe stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, me too. She fell asleep still holding the phone, still wondering if she'd just saved everyone or damned them all. In 3 days, she'd find out which. The call came at 6 in the morning. Chloe heard Ethan's phone buzz once, twice, then his footsteps in the hallway outside her room. She lay still, listening to his voice through the wall, too muffled to make out words but sharp enough to catch the tone. Something was wrong. She got up, pulled on the robe hanging behind her door, and found Ethan in the kitchen. He was still on the phone, staring out the window at the city waking up below them. His hair was messy, shirt untucked, barefoot. He looked more human than she'd ever seen him, which somehow made the tension in his shoulders more frightening. I don't care what his answer was, Ethan said into the phone. I care that he's gone. Is he gone? A pause. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then make him gone. Today. I don't have time for negotiations. He hung up without saying goodbye. Chloe cleared her throat. Moss? Moss is a problem. Ethan set the phone down carefully, like he wanted to throw it, but was forcing himself not to. Vincent made the offer last night. Generous package, Swiss firm, everything we discussed. Moss said he'd think about it. That's not a no. It's not a yes, and we don't have time for maybe. He moved to the espresso machine, started making coffee with precise, angry movements. The final negotiation is in 4 hours. If Moss suspects we know about his connection to Donovan, he could sabotage the whole thing before we close. What can he actually do? Leak confidential terms to Donovan. Convince Marco the valuation is wrong. Plant doubts about our financing structure. Create enough chaos that the deal falls apart. Ethan pulled 2 shots, the machine hissing. He's been their CFO for 12 years. Marco trusts him completely. One conversation could destroy everything. Chloe accepted the espresso he handed her. So what's Vincent doing? Making the offer less optional. Ethan's voice went flat. I told him generous exit only, but if Moss keeps stalling, Vincent's going to have to get creative. Define creative. I don't want to. Ethan. He met her eyes. Vincent's good at finding leverage, things people don't want exposed. Moss has been embezzling from the Castellanos for 3 years, small amounts they'd never notice. Vincent found the accounts yesterday. If Moss doesn't take the Switzerland offer, he gets exposed for embezzlement instead of quietly disappearing. That's blackmail. That's incentive. Ethan drained his espresso in one swallow. Moss made his choices. Vincent's just giving him a chance to walk away before those choices catch up with him. Chloe thought about the surveillance photos, about infrastructure in gray areas, about all the things Ethan had told her on the terrace 3 nights ago. This was what he'd meant. Choices that weren't clean. Does Sophia know about the embezzlement? No. And she won't if Moss is smart. He checked his watch. Vincent's meeting him in an hour. By the time we get to the negotiation, Moss will either be packing for Switzerland or packing for prison. Either way, he's not sabotaging this deal. You sound very sure. I'm very motivated. Something dangerous flickered in his expression. I've spent 11 months building this, Chloe. I'm not letting a traitor with an embezzlement problem destroy it in the final hours. His phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, frowned, then answered, What now? A pause. His expression went completely still. When? Another pause. Don't move. I'm on my way. He hung up, stood there for a second, perfectly motionless. Ethan? Chloe set down her cup. What happened? Moss is dead. The words hung in the air like something physical. What? Car accident, single vehicle, lost control on the FDR drive around 4 this morning. Vincent's people just confirmed identity. Ethan's voice came out mechanical. Empty. He's dead. Chloe's chest went tight. Oh my God. Get dressed. We need to get to the Castellanos before they hear it from someone else. He was already moving, heading toward his room. Professional clothes. We're going to need to look stable. Ethan, wait. She followed him. A car accident? That's convenient, I know. He pulled a shirt from his closet, started buttoning it with sharp, precise movements. Vincent swears his people weren't involved, that the offer hadn't been delivered yet when it happened, that it was just terrible timing. Do you believe him? I don't know. His hand stopped on the buttons. And right now, it doesn't matter. What matters is Marco and Sophia are about to lose their CFO hours before the biggest deal of their lives. If we don't get ahead of this, if we don't help them stabilize, everything falls apart. This is insane. This is crisis management. He finished the shirt, reached for a tie. In 30 minutes, the news breaks. Marco's going to panic. Sophia's going to have questions we can't answer. Our job is to keep them focused on the deal, not on the coincidence that Moss died hours before closing. Chloe stared at him. You think they'll suspect us? Sophia will. She's too smart not to. He knotted the tie perfectly. That's why we need to be there when she finds out. Show her we're just as shocked, just as concerned, just as committed to making this work despite the tragedy. More performance. More survival. He met her eyes in the mirror. Get dressed, Chloe. We're running out of time. She made it back to her room, pulled on the first professional outfit she could find, her hands shaking the whole time. Richard Moss was dead. Car accident, 4 in the morning, hours before Vincent was supposed to make an offer that would have made him disappear anyway. It was too convenient, way too convenient. But Ethan had sounded genuinely surprised, had looked actually shaken underneath the control. Unless that was performance too. Chloe finished dressing, stared at herself in the mirror. Who was she becoming? Standing here getting ready to help Ethan manage a crisis that might be murder disguised as accident, all to protect a business deal. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, from the living room. Car's waiting. Move. They made it to Brooklyn in 20 minutes. Marco's house was a brownstone in a neighborhood that still remembered when the Castellanos were just another immigrant family trying to make it. Sophia's car was already in the driveway. Ethan knocked. Marco answered, confused to see them. Ethan, Chloe, we're not meeting until 10. Is Sophia here? Ethan's voice came out gentle, concerned. We need to talk to both of you. Something in his tone made Marco's expression shift. What happened? They gathered in the living room. Sophia appeared from the kitchen, coffee in hand, eyes sharp. This is unexpected, she said. There's been an accident. Ethan stayed standing. Richard Moss, early this morning, single car collision on the FDR. Marco's face went white. Is he? He didn't make it. I'm sorry. Silence crashed through the room. Sophia set down her coffee very carefully. When did this happen? Around 4 a.m. My contact at NYPD called an hour ago. They're still processing the scene. Your contact. Sophia's voice stayed level, but her eyes had gone cold. At NYPD. I have contacts everywhere. It's how I stay informed. Ethan met her stare without flinching. I wanted you to hear it from me before it hits the news. Marco sank onto the couch, hands over his face. Richard, Jesus, he's been with us for 12 years. I know. Ethan's voice gentled. I know this is a shock, but we need to discuss what happens next. The closing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Richard was handling significant portions of the financial documentation. You want to talk about the deal? Sophia's tone could have cut glass. Richard is dead and you're worried about paperwork?
I'm worried about your company surviving this. Richard's death is a tragedy. It's also a crisis that could destroy everything if we don't handle it correctly. Ethan's expression stayed neutral. I'm here to help, Sophia, not to push. But if you want this deal to close, we need to move fast. How fast? Today. We need his replacement briefed, his files transferred, his role covered before market close. He pulled out his phone. I have people who can help. Forensic accountants, transfer specialists, people who can get up to speed in hours instead of days. Very convenient. Sophia stood. That you have people ready to step in immediately after Richard dies. I have people ready to step in because that's what I do. I prepare for every contingency. Ethan's voice stayed calm. If you'd rather handle this yourself, I'll leave right now. But you're going to need help, Sophia, and I'm offering it. Marco looked up. Why? Why do you care so much about helping us right now? Because this deal matters to all of us. Ethan moved closer. I meant what I said at dinner. I want to preserve what your father built. Richard's death doesn't change that. If anything, it makes it more important. Or more convenient, Sophia said quietly. Richard was the one person who knew our finances inside and out, the one person who could have exposed problems during closing, and now he's conveniently dead. The accusation hung in the air. Ethan's expression didn't change. Are you asking me something, Sophia? I'm observing a coincidence, a very suspicious coincidence. Richard died in a car accident hours before a deal he'd been working on for months. That's tragic. That's terrible. But it's not suspicious unless you have evidence it's something else. His eyes stayed level. Do you have evidence? I have questions. Then ask them. I'll answer every single one. Ethan crossed his arms. But I won't pretend to feel guilty about something I didn't do. Richard's death is a tragedy. I'm offering to help you survive it. If you'd rather spend this time investigating conspiracies instead of protecting your company, that's your choice. Chloe watched the standoff, her heart hammering. This was the moment. Either Sophia believed him or everything collapsed. Marco cleared his throat. Sophia, I know you're upset, but we need help and Ethan's offering it. Of course he is, because it benefits him. It benefits all of us. Marco stood. Richard is gone. Nothing changes that. But we can still save the company. That's what Dad would want. Sophia's jaw tightened. She looked at Chloe. What do you think? The question caught Chloe off guard. Me? You've been watching Ethan closer than anyone. You see things. Sophia's eyes stayed hard. Is he telling the truth? Chloe felt every eye in the room turn to her. This was the test, the moment where she chose a side. She thought about the phone call this morning, Ethan's genuine shock, his immediate pivot to crisis management, the way he'd looked when he said Vincent swore they weren't involved. I think Richard's death was an accident, she said carefully, and I think Ethan's trying to help. Whether that's pure altruism or strategic self-interest, I don't know. But right now, you need the help more than you need the answer to that question. Sophia held her gaze for a long moment. Then she looked at Ethan. I want your people here in an hour. I want full transparency on what they're doing, what they're accessing, what they're finding. And I want a delay on the closing. 24 hours to verify everything Richard set up wasn't compromised. Done. Ethan pulled out his phone. Anything else? Yes. Sophia moved closer. If I find out you had anything to do with Richard's death, I will destroy you. I don't care what it costs. Understood? Completely. Ethan's expression didn't flicker. And when you don't find anything, because there's nothing to find, I expect an apology. You'll get one, if I'm wrong. You are wrong, but I respect you for asking. He started making calls. Chloe followed Sophia into the kitchen, leaving Marco and Ethan to coordinate logistics. You think I'm paranoid, Sophia said, pouring fresh coffee. I think you're careful. There's a difference. But you believe him, that Richard's death was an accident. Chloe hesitated. I believe Ethan was surprised when he found out. I saw his face when he got the call. That wasn't performance. You sure about that? No. The honesty came out before Chloe could stop it. But I'm choosing to believe it because the alternative is too awful to function through right now.
Sophia's expression softened slightly. You really don't know what you've gotten into, do you? I'm learning. Fast. Be careful. People like Ethan, they're very good at making you believe what they need you to believe. She sipped her coffee. I found that email from Richard yesterday. Confronted him about it last night. Chloe's blood went cold. You what?
Called him after I talked to you, told him I knew about Donovan, that he had 24 hours to explain himself, or I was telling Marco. Sophia's voice stayed level. He swore it was nothing, just preliminary conversations, due diligence, protecting our interests. He was supposed to meet me this morning to explain everything. Did you tell Ethan that you confronted Richard? No, should I have? Chloe's mind raced. Sophia had confronted Moss last night, hours before his car went off the road. If Moss had panicked, if he'd called Donovan or done something desperate, if Vincent's people had been watching. Chloe? Sophia set down her cup. What's wrong? Nothing. She forced herself to breathe. I'm just trying to process everything. Join the club. Sophia leaned against the counter. You know what the worst part is? Part of me is relieved. Richard betrayed us, lied to us for months. Now he's dead, and I don't have to deal with the fallout. How terrible is that? It's human. It's cold. It's survival. Chloe met her eyes. You're allowed to feel relieved that a problem solved itself, Sophia. That doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't it? Her voice cracked slightly. He's dead, and I'm thinking about the deal. About how this actually makes things easier because we don't have to expose him, don't have to explain to Marco that his trusted CFO was a traitor. You're thinking about protecting your brother and your company. That's not cold. That's leadership. Sophia looked at her for a long moment. Then she straightened, wiping her eyes quickly. Thank you for being honest. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Chloe, be careful with Ethan. He's either the most genuine person I've ever met or the most dangerous. I haven't figured out which yet. When you do, let me know. The forensic accountants arrived within the hour. 3 people in suits who moved through the Castellano offices like surgical instruments, precise and efficient. By noon, they'd transferred all of Richard's active files, briefed Sophia on the financial documentation, and flagged 3 discrepancies in the projected revenue models. Small discrepancies. Probably mistakes. But Ethan's people caught them, corrected them, and documented everything for the lawyers. Sophia watched it all with sharp eyes, looking for cracks in the facade. She didn't find any. By evening, the revised closing documents were ready. The deal would proceed tomorrow morning as scheduled, just 24 hours delayed. Marco seemed relieved. Sophia seemed exhausted. Ethan drove Chloe back to Manhattan in silence. They were halfway across the bridge when he finally spoke. You handled Sophia well. I told her the truth. You told her what she needed to hear. There's a difference. Is there? Chloe stared out the window. She told me something. She confronted Moss last night, hours before he died. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. What did she say to him? That she knew about Donovan, that he had 24 hours to explain himself. She turned to look at him. If Moss panicked, if he did something stupid, he drove off the road, alone, at 4 a.m. Ethan's voice stayed level. Vincent's people confirmed the NYPD report. No other vehicles involved, no signs of foul play. Just a man driving too fast who lost control. Because he was panicking, because Sophia confronted him. Possibly. So we killed him, indirectly, by pushing him into a corner where he made a fatal mistake. No. Ethan's voice went hard. Moss killed himself by betraying people who trusted him, by embezzling from a family business, by making choices that cornered him. We didn't put him in that car. We didn't make him drive recklessly. He did that. You really believe that? I have to. He pulled into his building's garage. Because the alternative is admitting that trying to protect Marco and Sophia got a man killed, and I can't function if I believe that. They rode the elevator in silence. Inside the apartment, Ethan poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey and drained it in one swallow. Vincent swears his people weren't involved, he said quietly. I believe him, But I also know that Moss dying solved a lot of problems very conveniently.
So what do we do?
We close the deal tomorrow. We protect Marco and Sophia. We make sure Richard Moss's death wasn't completely meaningless. He poured another drink, and we live with the possibility that we're wrong about what really happened. Chloe moved to the window. The city glittered below, indifferent to the small tragedies playing out in its towers. I keep thinking about what Sophia said, she murmured. That part of her was relieved he was dead, that it made things easier.
Do you feel the same way? I don't know. Maybe. She pressed her hand against the glass. Is that terrible? It's honest. Ethan joined her at the window. Moss was a traitor. He was stealing from them. He was going to destroy their company. His death solved problems that would have ruined lives. Feeling relieved about that doesn't make you a monster. Doesn't it? No, it makes you pragmatic. He stood close enough that she could feel the warmth of him.
You want to know what makes you different from people like Vincent?
What?
You're asking the question. Vincent wouldn't. He'd just move forward, another problem solved, another obstacle removed. But you're standing here wondering if feeling relieved makes you terrible. His voice dropped. That's the difference. You still care about the answer. Chloe turned to face him. They were standing very close now, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact.
Do you? She asked. Care about the answer? More than I want to. His eyes tracked over her face. Every choice I make, I ask myself if it's necessary or if I'm just becoming someone I don't recognize. Most of the time, I can't tell the difference. And tonight? Tonight, I'm choosing to believe Richard Moss died in an accident because the alternative means I'm responsible for a death I didn't intend. And I can't close this deal tomorrow if I believe that. The honesty in his voice made something crack in Chloe's chest. We're terrible people, she said quietly. We're complicated people making impossible choices. He reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so casual, so gentle, it made her breath catch. Tomorrow this is over. The deal closes. Marco and Sophia are safe. You get your promotion. Everything goes back to normal. Will it? No. He didn't move his hand. But we can pretend. Chloe should step back. Should put distance between them. Should remember that this was her boss, that they were in the middle of a crisis, that everything about this was complicated and dangerous and wrong. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. Ethan. His phone buzzed. He stepped back, breaking the moment, and checked the screen. Vincent, well, he answered. Tell me you have good news. A pause. His expression went hard. When? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up. What now? Chloe asked. Donovan Industries just filed an emergency injunction. They're claiming the Castellano deal involved fraud, that Richard Moss was going to expose it before he died, that we need to halt the closing pending investigation. They can't do that. They shouldn't be able to, but they have a judge who's sympathetic and evidence that looks convincing if you don't examine it too closely. Ethan was already moving, grabbing his jacket. I need to get to our lawyers. They're filing a counter motion in 2 hours. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. I'm coming. Chloe grabbed her coat. Whatever happens next, I'm seeing it through. He looked at her for a moment, then nodded. They made it to the law offices in 15 minutes. Conference room full of lawyers, all looking tense. Ethan's lead counsel was already on the phone arguing with someone. The injunction is garbage, she said, hanging up. But garbage can still stick if we don't move fast. Donovan's claiming Moss found evidence of financial manipulation in the Castellano books, that he was going to expose it this morning, that his death was suspiciously convenient. What evidence? Ethan demanded. Fabricated emails, made to look like they came from Richard's account. Timestamps from yesterday. Content suggesting he'd found irregularities in our valuation model. The lawyer pulled up documents on the screen. It's good work. Professional forgery. If we didn't have his actual email server backed up, we'd have a problem. Can we prove they're fake? Already done. Email headers don't match Richard's actual server. IP addresses traced to a proxy service Donovan's used before. She smiled grimly. They were sloppy, probably rushed because of the accident.
Didn't expect us to have this much documentation ready. So we're clear? We're clear. Judge will throw out the injunction by morning.
She paused. But Ethan, they're going to keep trying. Donovan wants this company. They're not going to just accept defeat. Let them try. His voice went cold. Tomorrow morning, we close. After that, the Castellanos are protected. Donovan can file 1,000 injunctions, and it won't matter. The lawyers went back to work. Ethan pulled Chloe into an empty conference room. This is what I meant, he said quietly, about how deals really work. Donovan couldn't beat us legitimately.
So they're fabricating evidence, buying judges, doing anything they can to disrupt. That's illegal. Prove it. By the time anyone investigates, the injunction will be dismissed, and Donovan will claim they were acting on information they believed was genuine. He leaned against the table. This is the world, Chloe. Not the clean business school version. The version where people forge emails and bribe judges and do whatever it takes to win. So what do? We win. He pulled out his phone. And we make sure Donovan understands that going after my deals has consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind Vincent handles. He started typing. Donovan has vulnerabilities. Everyone does. Vincent's going to find them and make it very clear that continuing this fight will cost more than they're willing to pay. More gray areas, well, more survival. He sent the message. You can still walk away, right now. Go home, get some sleep, show up tomorrow for the closing and collect your promotion. And miss seeing how this ends? Chloe moved closer. I'm in this far. Might as well see it through. Something that might have been pride flickered in his expression. You're learning. Or losing my mind. Haven't decided which. Often the same thing. He checked his watch. Legal team will be working through the night. We should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense. They made it back to the apartment after midnight. Chloe was too wired to sleep, too full of adrenaline and fear, and something else she didn't want to name. She found Ethan on the terrace again, same spot as 3 nights ago, staring at the city like it held answers. Can't sleep either, she said. Thinking. He didn't look at her. About Richard Moss. About whether I'm responsible for his death. You said we had to believe it was an accident. I said I had to believe it to function tomorrow. That's different from actually believing it. He turned to face her. What if Vincent lied? What if his people did cause the accident? What if I'm building an empire on bodies I don't acknowledge? The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. I don't know, Chloe said honestly, but I know you're asking the question. That has to count for something. Does it? Or does it just make me a hypocrite who feels bad about things he keeps doing anyway? I think it makes you human. Human! He laughed, bitter. My father used to say being human is a luxury we can't afford in this business. That sentiment gets you killed. Is that what you believe? I don't know what I believe anymore. He moved closer. 3 days ago, you were just my assistant. Smart, chaotic, unpredictable, but ultimately someone I could control. Now you're standing here, seeing everything, asking questions I can't answer, making me doubt choices I used to make automatically. Is that a bad thing? It's a dangerous thing. His eyes stayed on hers. You make me want to be different, better, someone who doesn't need Vincent's infrastructure or gray area solutions. But I don't know if that person can actually build what I'm trying to build. Maybe that's the wrong question. What's the right one? Maybe the question isn't whether you can build it. Maybe it's whether what you're building is worth who you have to become to build it. Silence stretched between them. Then Ethan closed the distance, his hand coming up to cup her face. The touch was gentle, questioning. This is a terrible idea, he said quietly. Probably the worst. You work for me. We're in the middle of a crisis. Everything about this is complicated and messy and wrong. I know. And you're still not stepping back. Neither are you. No. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm not. He kissed her, slow and careful, like he was making a choice he couldn't unmake. Chloe leaned into it, her hands coming up to grip his shirt, pulling him closer. This was stupid, reckless, crossing a line that would complicate everything. She didn't care.
When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "Tomorrow changes everything," he said. "I know. After the closing, after this is over, we need to figure out what this is. We will." She pulled back to look at him. "But tonight, can we just—" "Yeah." His arms tightened around her. "Yeah, we can." They stood there on the terrace as the city moved below them, two people making terrible choices and knowing it, holding each other like it might make the consequences hurt less. It wouldn't. But for tonight, pretending was enough. Chloe woke to find the other side of the bed empty. She sat up, disoriented for a moment, before the previous night came rushing back. The terrace, the kiss, everything that happened after. She found Ethan in the kitchen, already dressed in a suit, on the phone. He glanced at her, something unreadable crossing his face before he turned back to the window. "I don't care what their lawyers are saying," he said into the phone. "The injunction was dismissed an hour ago. We're closing at 10. A pause. Then make them understand this deal happens today." He hung up, poured coffee, handed her a cup without asking if she wanted one. "Donovan's still pushing," he said. "Different angle now. They're claiming the Castellanos don't have clear title to some of the real estate assets. It's garbage, but it's creating noise." "Can they actually stop the closing?" "No, but they can make it messy." He checked his watch. "We need to leave in 40 minutes. The signing is at the Castellano offices. Marco and Sofia want it on their home ground." "Makes sense." Chloe sipped the coffee. It was perfect, the way he always made it. "Are we going to talk about last night?" "After the closing." His voice stayed neutral. "Right now I need to focus on making sure 11 months of work doesn't collapse in the final hour." "Ethan, please." He finally looked at her. "I can't do both. I can't think about what this means and also keep everything from falling apart. So I'm asking you to let me compartmentalize until this is done." The honesty in his voice made her chest tight. "Okay, after the closing. Thank you." He moved toward his office, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I don't regret it. Last night, any of it. Neither do I." Something that might have been relief flickered in his expression. Then he was gone, disappearing into his office, back into the version of himself that controlled everything. Chloe got ready in a daze. Professional clothes, careful makeup, everything designed to project stability. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 4 days ago, she'd been terrified of losing her job over a voice message. Now she was preparing to watch a deal close that involved deaths and betrayals and infrastructure she still didn't fully understand. The car arrived exactly on time. They rode to Brooklyn in silence, Ethan reviewing documents on his tablet, Chloe watching the city slide past. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sofia. "Today's the day. Thank you for everything, for being honest when I needed it." Chloe stared at the message. Honest. She'd been anything but honest. She'd manipulated, gathered intelligence, helped Ethan manage crises while hiding what she knew. But she'd also protected Sofia from truths that would have destroyed her. From knowing her CFO was a traitor. From the uglier implications of how Richard Moss actually died. Maybe that was its own kind of honesty. The Castellano offices occupied the top floor of their factory building. Walking through the reception area, Chloe could feel the history. Photos on the walls showing 4 generations of workers, products, growth. Marco's father smiling next to the first machine. Sofia's a teenager in safety goggles, learning to operate equipment. Marco met them in the lobby. He looked exhausted, older than he had a week ago. "Ethan, Chloe." His handshake was firm, but his eyes were tired. "Thank you for being here, for everything you've done this week." "Where's Sofia?" Ethan asked. "Conference room. Going over the final documents one more time. She's been here since 5 this morning." They found her surrounded by papers, laptop open, 2 empty coffee cups on the table. She looked up when they entered. "Tell me Donovan's done making noise," she said. "They're done." Ethan set his briefcase on the table. "The title issue was resolved an hour ago. Their lawyers are out of moves." "You sound very confident." "I am, because every angle they tried was either fabricated or irrelevant. The deal is solid, Sofia. It always has been." She studied him for a long moment. "I still have questions. About Richard. About the timing of everything." "I know.
And after the closing,
I'll answer every single one. He met her eyes. But right now, we have 2 hours before the lawyers arrive. I need to know if you're ready to do this. Are you asking if I trust you? I'm asking if you trust that this deal protects what your father built. Whether you trust me is separate. Sophia's jaw tightened. She looked at Marco, who'd followed them in. What do you think? She asked her brother. I think Dad would want us to sign. Marco moved to the window,
looking out at the factory floor below. He spent his whole life building something that could survive him. This deal does that. With Ethan's money and Ethan's control. With Ethan's resources and our vision, Marco corrected. I've read every clause, Sophia. We maintain operational control. We approve all major decisions. The employees keep their jobs and their benefits. It's everything we wanted. Except we're not independent anymore. We weren't independent anyway. We were drowning. He turned to face her. This deal saves us. Everything else is just pride. Sophia looked down at the document spread in front of her. I keep thinking about Richard, about how convenient his death was for everyone. Except Richard, Chloe said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I'm not saying his death wasn't suspicious, she continued. I'm saying that if there was foul play, the person it benefited least was Richard himself. And sometimes people make bad choices when they're cornered. Sometimes they drive too fast at 4 a.m. because they're panicking about getting caught. You think he killed himself? Sophia asked. I think he died because of choices he made. Whether anyone helped him make those choices, I don't know. But blaming Ethan without evidence doesn't bring Richard back. It just destroys this deal and everything your father built. Silence filled the room. Then Marco cleared his throat. She's right. We can investigate Richard's death after the closing. But if we blow up the deal on suspicion alone, we lose everything for nothing. Sophia closed her laptop. Fine. We close. But Ethan, I meant what I said. If I find evidence you were involved in Richard's death, I will destroy you. Understood. Ethan didn't flinch. And I hope you never find evidence because there isn't any to find. The lawyers arrived at 9:30. Both sides, 10 people total, carrying briefcases and laptops and the careful neutrality of professionals who'd seen every kind of deal go wrong. The closing took 2 hours. Signatures on 37 different documents. Transfer of funds verified. Regulatory approvals confirmed. Every clause read aloud. Every contingency addressed. Every detail locked into place. At 11:43, Marco signed the final document. Sophia added her signature below his. Then Ethan signed as acquiring party. The lead lawyer looked up. Ladies and gentlemen, the transaction is complete. Congratulations. Applause from the legal team. Handshakes all around. Marco hugged his sister. Sophia's eyes were wet. Ethan shook hands with both of them, professional and distant, giving them space for the moment. Then Marco did something unexpected. He pulled Ethan into a hug. Thank you, he said quietly, for keeping your word, for protecting what my father built. Ethan looked startled for just a second. Then he returned the hug. It's an honor. I won't let you down. Sophia approached Chloe. I suppose I owe you thanks, too, for keeping me sane this week. You kept yourself sane. I just listened. You did more than that. Sophia's expression softened. You were honest when I needed honesty. That matters. The guilt twisted in Chloe's stomach. I tried to be. I know. Sophia squeezed her arm. Take care of him. Ethan, I mean. He needs someone who sees him clearly. I'm not sure he wants to be seen clearly. Nobody does. But he needs it anyway. She moved back to Marco, leaving Chloe standing alone. The lawyers packed up. Marco and Sophia stayed to handle transition details with Ethan's operations team. Ethan pulled Chloe aside. I need to stay for another hour. Finalize handoff protocols. You can head back if you want. I'll wait. You don't have to. I'll wait. She met his eyes. We have things to talk about, remember? After this. He glanced at the conference room where Marco was already deep in conversation with the transition team. 1 more hour, then we're done. But they weren't done, because at 12:15, Ethan's phone rang. He looked at the screen, frowned, then stepped into the hallway to answer. Chloe watched through the glass as his expression changed, went from neutral to hard to something that might have been fear. He hung up, stood there for a moment, perfectly still. Then he came back into the room. Marco, Sophia, I need to speak with you privately. Now. Something in his tone made everyone stop talking. They moved to a smaller conference room. Just the four of them. Ethan closed the door. I just got a call from my security team, he said. There's been a development about Richard Moss. Sophia went pale. What kind of development? The accident investigation found something. Evidence that someone tampered with his car's brake line, cut it partially so it would fail under pressure. Ethan's voice stayed level. Richard's death wasn't an accident. It was murder. The words crashed through the room like a bomb. Marco sank into a chair. Murder. Someone killed Richard. The question is who? Sophia turned to Ethan, eyes hard. And whether you knew about this before the closing. I found out 3 minutes ago, the same time you did. He pulled out his phone, showed her the message. My security team has contacts in NYPD. They notified me as soon as the evidence was confirmed. Very convenient timing, Sophia said. After the deal closes. After we've signed over everything. You think I planned this? That I waited until after closing to tell you Richard was murdered? Ethan's voice went cold. Why would I do that? Because before closing, this information might have changed our minds. After closing, it's just information. Sophia, Marco started. No, she stood. Think about it, Marco. Ethan had motive to kill Richard. He was a traitor feeding information to Donovan. He knew too much about both sides. His death solved problems for everyone. Except it creates a murder investigation, Ethan said, which creates exactly the kind of scrutiny I've been trying to avoid. If I wanted Richard dead, I would have waited until after everything's settled. Not killed him the night before closing when it would create maximum chaos. Unless you needed him dead before he could expose something. Like what? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Sophia moved closer. You have infrastructure, Ethan. You admitted as much. People who operate in gray areas, people who handle problems that can't be solved legitimately. I do. And none of them killed Richard Moss. His eyes stayed level. But I know who did. The room went silent. What? Marco whispered. Donovan Industries. They killed him. Ethan pulled up something on his phone. My team's been investigating them since they filed that injunction yesterday. We found communications between their executives and a contractor, messages arranging surveillance on Richard, photos of his daily route, everything you'd need to plan an accident. He showed them the screen. Messages, photos, timestamps, all pointing to Donovan. Sophia stared at the evidence. Why? Why would Donovan kill their own informant? Because he wasn't useful anymore, because he was about to be exposed and might have turned on them. Because dead men can't testify. Ethan put the phone away. Richard betrayed you. Then he betrayed Donovan by getting caught. They eliminated him before he became a liability. You have proof of this? Marco asked. Enough to take to authorities. Enough to open an investigation. Ethan's expression hardened. The question is whether you want me to. Because going public means exposing Richard's betrayal. Means your employees learning their CFO was a traitor. Means your father's legacy gets tainted with scandal. Or we keep quiet, Sophia said slowly. Let Richard's death stay classified as an accident. Protect the company's reputation. While Donovan gets away with murder, Chloe said. Everyone looked at her. Sorry, but that's what we're talking about. Letting them kill someone and walk away because it's inconvenient to pursue justice. It's not about convenience, Marco said. It's about protecting our employees. The deal just closed. If we immediately drag the company into a murder investigation, it destabilizes everything. People lose jobs, confidence evaporates, everything Dad built collapses anyway. So what do we do? Sophia asked. Ethan's expression went dangerous. We let me handle Donovan, my way, through channels that don't involve police or publicity or anything that damages the company. You mean Vincent, Sophia said. I mean people who can make Donovan understand that killing to disrupt my deals has consequences they can't afford. His voice dropped. They murdered a man. They tried to destroy what we just built. They don't get to walk away from that. And what exactly will your people do to them? Whatever's necessary to ensure they never try this again. Ethan met her eyes. You don't have to agree with my methods, Sophia. You just have to decide whether you trust me to protect what we built. The room fell silent. Marco looked at his sister. Sophia stared at Ethan like she was trying to read something written in a language she didn't fully understand. If we let you handle this, she said finally, we're complicit. In whatever happens to Donovan, whatever your people do, we're part of it. Yes, you are. Ethan didn't soften the truth. That's the choice. Police investigation that destroys the company's reputation, or trusting me to handle it in a way that protects everyone except the people who deserve consequences. And if your way involves more deaths, Chloe asked, more bodies we don't acknowledge, then that's on me. Not you, not Marco, not Sophia. He turned to face her. This is what I meant about impossible choices. There's no clean answer here, just different versions of ugly. Marco stood. I need air. I need to think. He left. Sophia followed him out, leaving Chloe and Ethan alone. This is insane, Chloe said. We're talking about covering up a murder and letting you wage some kind of shadow war against Donovan. We're talking about survival, for the company, for the employees, for everything Marco and Sophia have been trying to protect. Ethan moved closer. You want the moral answer? Turn everything over to police. Let them investigate. Watch the company collapse under the weight of scandal while Donovan's lawyers tie everything up in court for years. And your way? My way, Donovan gets hurt, badly, but quietly. The company stays stable. The employees keep their jobs. And Richard Moss's death doesn't destroy everything he was supposed to protect. Supposed to protect, before he became a traitor, before he made choices that got him killed. Ethan's jaw tightened. I'm not defending Richard, but I won't let the company pay for his mistakes. Chloe wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be another way, but she thought about Marco's face, about Sophia's exhaustion, about 4 generations of workers who had no idea their company had almost been destroyed twice in 1 week. What happens now, she asked. Now I call Vincent, give him everything we have on Donovan, let him coordinate a response. Which involves, I don't know, and I won't ask. That's the boundary, remember? I make decisions. Vincent implements them. I don't examine the implementation too closely. That's cowardice. That's survival. He pulled out his phone. You can walk away right now. Go home. Forget you heard any of this. Collect your promotion and move on with a clean conscience. Would you let me? No. The honesty in his voice surprised her. I try to stop you, because I need you here, Chloe. I need someone who sees clearly, who asks the hard questions, who keeps me from becoming just another person who doesn't care about the consequences. Even if I can't actually stop you from making these choices, especially then, because at least you'll see them. At least someone will know the full cost. He held her gaze. I know what I'm asking. I know it's not fair, but I'm asking anyway. Before Chloe could answer, the door opened. Sophia came back in, Marco behind her. We've decided, Sophia said. We let you handle Donovan, your way, but on one condition. Name it. You tell us the truth. After it's done, after whatever happens, you tell us exactly what your people did. No euphemisms, no vague references. We get the truth. Ethan was quiet for a moment. That's not how this usually works. It's how it works this time. Or we go to the police right now. Her voice stayed steady. You wanted us to trust you. This is what trust looks like. Full transparency about the ugly choices, even if we can't stop them. Agreed. Ethan held out his hand. After it's done. Full truth. Sophia shook it. Don't make me regret this. I'll try not to. They left. Marco looked hollowed out. Sophia looked angry but resolved. The weight of impossible choices settling on shoulders that weren't built to carry them. Ethan made the call to Vincent right there, Chloe listening to every word. The Donovan situation is active, he said. I'm sending you evidence of their involvement in Moss's death. I want a response that makes it clear this kind of interference has permanent consequences. A pause. Yes, I'm sure.
Handle it however you see fit. He hung up. That's it? Chloe asked. You just unleashed Vincent on an entire company? I unleashed Vincent on the executives who ordered a murder. There's a difference. He started gathering his things. Donovan's company will be fine. The people who made the call won't be. And you're comfortable with that. I'm accepting of it. Comfortable is a word for people with easier choices. He looked at her. Are you staying or walking away? Chloe thought about everything she'd seen this week. The manipulation, the deaths, the gray areas that kept getting darker. She thought about Ethan on the terrace last night, admitting he didn't know who he was becoming. She thought about Sophia's warning to figure out if she was working for him or with him. I'm staying, she said. But we're having that conversation tonight about what this is and where it goes and what I'm actually signing up for. Agreed. Something like relief crossed his face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I haven't decided if I'm staying to help you or stop you from becoming worse. Honestly, I'm not sure there's a difference. They made it back to Manhattan by 2. Ethan disappeared into his office immediately, handling calls and coordinating with his team. Chloe sat in the living room, staring at the city, trying to process everything. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The Donovan executives responsible for Moss's death have been identified. 3 people: CEO, COO, and head of corporate intelligence. Do you want details on the response? It had to be Vincent, or someone working for him. Chloe stared at the message. This was the line. Responding meant accepting she was part of this, part of whatever happened next. She typed back, no. Just tell me when it's done. Understood. We'll update in 24 to 48 hours. The message disappeared, self-deleting, leaving no evidence it had ever existed. Chloe set down her phone, stood up, walked to Ethan's office and opened the door without knocking. He looked up from his desk. Is something wrong? We're having that conversation now, not tonight, now. He studied her face. Then he closed his laptop. Okay, talk. What are we doing? The question came out harder than she intended. Not the deal, not Donovan, not any of the crisis management. Us. What is this? Complicated. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He stood, moved around the desk. I don't know what we're doing, Chloe. I know I kissed you last night. I know I don't regret it. I know I want it to happen again. But I also know I'm your boss, that we're in the middle of chaos, that everything about this is messy and probably destructive. So what do? We figure it out, together, after things settle. He moved closer. I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm asking you to give us time to breathe before we make choices we can't unmake. Everything we've done this week is a choice we can't unmake. I know, that's why I'm asking for time, so we can make at least one choice carefully. Chloe wanted to argue, wanted to demand clarity, boundaries, something concrete to hold on to. But looking at Ethan's face, seeing the genuine uncertainty there, she realized he was just as lost as she was. Okay, she said. Time. But not too much. I can't exist in limbo while you figure out if I'm worth the complication. You're worth it. That's not the question. His hand came up to cup her face, the gesture already familiar. The question is whether I can be someone who deserves you while also being someone who runs this empire. Maybe those aren't mutually exclusive. Maybe. He didn't sound convinced. Or maybe I'm about to prove they are. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then showed her the screen. It was a news alert. 3 executives from Donovan Industries had resigned suddenly, citing personal reasons. Effective immediately. That was fast, Chloe said. Vincent's efficient. Ethan put the phone away. They're not dead if that's what you're worried about. Just gone. New identities, new cities, new lives far away from anything they used to control. Against their will. As opposed to what? Letting them stay in power after murdering someone? His voice hardened. They made a choice. They killed a man to disrupt a business deal. Vincent gave them a choice to disappear quietly or face exposure for what they did. They chose disappearing. You really believe that? That they had a choice? I believe they're alive, which is more than they gave Richard Moss. He turned back to the window. You want me to feel guilty about removing people who murder to win business deals? I can't do that, Chloe. I won't. She moved to stand beside him. The city spread out below, millions of people living normal lives, making normal choices, never having to decide between exposing murder and protecting employees. I'm not asking you to feel guilty, she said quietly. I'm asking you to acknowledge the cost, to see what these choices are turning you into. I see it every day. His reflection in the glass looked tired. And every day I decide the cost is worth it, because the alternative is letting people like Donovan destroy things without consequences. And what about the cost to you, to who you are? That's what I have you for, to remind me who I used to be. He turned to face her. You're the only person who's seen all of it, Chloe. The deals, the manipulation, the gray areas, the ugly choices. And you're still here. Barely. But here. His hand found hers. That matters more than you know. They stood there in silence as the afternoon light shifted, throwing long shadows across the office. Outside, Manhattan moved forward, indifferent to the small dramas playing out in its towers. Inside, two people who'd crossed too many lines in the past week held on to each other like it might keep them from crossing more. It wouldn't. But for now, the illusion was enough. The call came 48 hours later, exactly when Vincent had promised. Ethan answered on speaker, Chloe sitting across from him in his office. They'd barely left the apartment since the closing, both of them existing in a strange, suspended state, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's done, Vincent said. His voice was flat, professional, completely devoid of emotion. The three Donovan executives are gone. New identities, different countries, financial incentives sufficient to ensure they never resurface. Any complications? Ethan asked. None. They understood the alternatives. A pause. The evidence linking them to Moss's death has been secured. It won't surface unless you need it to. And Donovan Industries? Chaos. Board scrambling to appoint interim leadership. Stock dropped 12% this morning. They'll survive, but they're wounded badly enough to avoid future interference. Good. Ethan's expression stayed neutral. Send me the full report. Encrypted. Already in your secure folder. Vincent paused again. Ethan, this was messier than usual. More exposure, more risk. I'd advise avoiding this kind of situation in the future. Noted. Thank you, Vincent. One more thing. The Castellanos. They asked for full transparency about what happened. Are you actually going to give it to them? Ethan glanced at Chloe. Yes, I promised. That's a mistake. Civilians can't handle this kind of information. They'll react emotionally, create problems you don't need. Maybe. But I gave my word. He ended the call before Vincent could argue further. Silence filled the office. Chloe stared at the phone like it might explode. So that's it? She said finally. 3 people disappeared and we just moved forward? That's it. Ethan leaned back in his chair. They're alive. They're safe. They're just very far away from any position of power. Against their will. They killed a man, Chloe. What exactly would you have preferred? I don't know. Police, courts, actual justice. Which would have taken years, destroyed the Castellano company's reputation, and probably ended with expensive lawyers getting them reduced sentences. His voice stayed calm. This way they're gone, permanently. And everyone else gets to move forward. Except we know. We have to live with knowing. Yes, we do. He met her eyes. That's the cost. Not guilt over what happened to them, but the weight of knowing we chose expediency over principle. Chloe wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be another way, but she'd spent 2 days thinking about it, running through scenarios, and every legitimate path ended with more damage than good. We need to tell Sophia and Marco, she said instead. I know. Ethan checked his watch. They're expecting us in 2 hours. I promised them the truth. All of it. Are you actually going to deliver? You think I'd lie to them? After everything? I think you're very good at telling people what they need to hear instead of what actually happened. She stood, moving to the window. And I think part of you wants to protect them from the ugliest parts of this.
You're right. I do want to protect them. He joined her at the window. But I also gave my word. So I'm going to tell them exactly what Vincent did, how the Donovan executives were removed, and what kind of infrastructure I actually operate. And then they can decide whether they can live with being part of it. What if they can't? Then the deal stands, but the relationship ends. We become business associates instead of partners. They get the legal protections, I get the strategic assets, and we all pretend to be fine with it. That's not what you want. No, but it might be what I deserve. He turned to face her. After this, after we talk to them, we're having our conversation. The one about what this is and where it goes. I thought you wanted time. I did. Then I realized time just means more opportunities to rationalize avoiding hard choices. His hand found hers. I need to know if you can actually exist in this world, Chloe. Not survive it, not tolerate it, actually live in it without losing yourself. And if I can't, then I need to let you go before I drag you down with me. The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. Because I'm not changing. The empire, the infrastructure, the gray areas, that's who I am. The question is whether you can be with someone like that. You're asking me to accept that you'll keep making impossible choices that hurt people. I'm asking you to accept that I'll keep making strategic choices that sometimes hurt people. It's not the same thing. He paused. But yes, if you stay, you're accepting all of it. The good, the ugly, and everything in between. Before Chloe could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. We're ready when you are. Come whenever. And Ethan, thank you for keeping your word about transparency. It matters. Chloe showed him the message. Something flickered in his expression that might have been relief or fear or both. Let's go, Seth, he said, before I change my mind about telling them everything. They took the drive to Brooklyn in near silence. The city looked different now, like someone had shifted a filter. Same buildings, same streets, but Chloe couldn't see them the same way anymore. Every tower held secrets. Every office building operated on infrastructure that didn't appear in annual reports. The entire city was built on layers of compromise and calculation that most people never saw. Marco and Sophia were waiting in the same conference room where they'd signed the deal 2 days ago. The papers were gone now, replaced by coffee and the weight of things they couldn't unknow. Thank you for coming, Marco said. He looked older, more tired. We've been going over everything. The closing, Richard's death, the Donovan situation. We have questions. Ask them, Ethan said. Any of them. I'll answer honestly. Sophia leaned forward. Start with Vincent. Who is he really? What does he actually do for you? Vincent manages the infrastructure that keeps my empire running when legitimate channels fail. He handles problems that can't be solved through courts or contracts or negotiations. Ethan's voice stayed level. He has connections in law enforcement, political circles, corporate security. He knows how to find leverage, how to apply pressure, how to make problems disappear. Like the Donovan executives. Exactly like the Donovan executives. No hesitation. Vincent identified them, gathered evidence of their involvement in Richard's murder, then gave them a choice. Disappear quietly with financial security and new identities, or face exposure for what they'd done. That's not really a choice, Marco said. It's more choice than they gave Richard. Ethan met his eyes. They ordered a murder to disrupt a business deal. Vincent gave them exile instead of death. I'd call that generous. Where are they now? Sophia asked. I don't know specifics. Vincent handles implementation. I just make decisions. He paused. But they're alive, financially stable, and far enough away that they'll never interfere with anything I build again. And you're comfortable with that? Just removing people from their lives because they threatened your deal? They didn't threaten my deal. They murdered someone. That's different. His voice hardened. If they'd just competed legitimately, tried to outbid me, convinced you to go with them instead, fine. That's business. But they killed a man. At that point, consequences stopped being negotiable. Sophia studied him for a long moment. You really believe you're different from them, don't you? That your methods are justified because your intentions are better. I believe I'm honest about the methods. They pretended to be legitimate while ordering murders. I admit I operate in gray areas and use that infrastructure strategically. He leaned forward. The difference is, I don't lie to myself about it. And I don't lie to the people who partner with me.
Just to the people who work for you? Sophia glanced at Chloe. I've never lied to Chloe. I've withheld information, managed what she saw, controlled the narrative. But when she asked direct questions, I answered honestly. Ethan's expression didn't change. She knows exactly what kind of person I am, what infrastructure I use, what choices I'm willing to make. And she's still here. Is she? Sophia turned to Chloe. Are you here because you want to be, or because he's made it impossible to leave? The question hung in the air. Chloe felt everyone's eyes on her. Both, she said finally. I'm here because leaving means abandoning people I've come to care about. You, Marco, the employees, even Ethan. But I'm also here because he's made it very clear what leaving would cost, and I'm not sure I'm willing to pay that price. That's honest, Marco said quietly. It's also terrifying. Chloe looked at Ethan. Because I don't know if I'm staying out of loyalty or fear or something else entirely, and I won't know until I have enough distance to think clearly. Do you want distance? Ethan asked. I don't know. Ask me after this conversation. Sophia almost smiled. At least someone's being honest about the confusion. She turned back to Ethan. Okay. You've told us about Vincent, about the Donovan executives, about your infrastructure. Now tell us about Richard. What really happened the night he died? Ethan took a breath. Richard died in a car accident, single vehicle, brake failure, 4 a.m. on the FDR Drive. The investigation later found evidence of tampering, which led to Donovan. All of that is true. But, Sophia pressed, but Vincent had been surveilling Richard for days before that, had identified the embezzlement, the connection to Donovan, everything we needed to remove him quietly. We were planning to offer him the Switzerland exit the next morning. He paused. And you confronted Richard the night before he died. Told him you knew about Donovan, gave him 24 hours to explain. So I got him killed. Sophia's voice went flat. No, Donovan got him killed because he panicked after your confrontation and called them, and they decided he was too much of a liability to keep alive. Ethan's expression stayed neutral. You exposed a traitor. What happened after that was Donovan's choice, not yours. But if I hadn't confronted him, he'd still be a traitor, and eventually that would have caught up with him. Marco reached over, squeezed his sister's hand. You didn't kill Richard, Sophia. You just accelerated what was already coming. That's a convenient rationalization. It's the truth. Ethan leaned back. Richard made choices that put him in an impossible position. You, me, Donovan, we all just responded to those choices. But the fundamental betrayal was his. Silence settled over the room. Chloe watched Sophia process this, saw the guilt and anger and exhaustion warring on her face. I need to know something, Sophia said finally. And I need complete honesty. Did Vincent or his people have anything to do with Richard's actual death? Not the aftermath, not the cleanup, the death itself. No. Ethan didn't hesitate. Vincent swears his people weren't involved. I believe him. The timeline doesn't work, the method doesn't match his operational style, and he had no reason to move that fast. We had time to handle Richard cleanly. But you can't be completely sure. I'm as sure as I can be without having personally witnessed every moment of that night. He held her gaze. If you need absolute certainty, I can't give it to you. But I can tell you that everything I know points to Donovan, and nothing points to Vincent. Sophia was quiet for a long time. Then she looked at her brother. What do you think? She asked. I think Ethan's telling the truth as he knows it. Marco's voice was steady. I also think we're never going to know with complete certainty what happened that night, so we have to decide whether we trust him enough to move forward anyway. And do you trust him? I trust that he wants this partnership to work. I trust that he's been honest about his methods, even when that honesty makes him look bad. Marco turned to Ethan. But I also think you operate in a world that's more dangerous than you admit. And I think getting close to you means accepting risks we're not equipped to handle. You're right, Ethan said simply. Everything you just said is accurate. Being partners with me means exposure to infrastructure and methods that most legitimate businesses never touch.
It means accepting that problems get solved through channels you don't control and sometimes don't even want to know about. So why should we stay partners? Sophia asked. Why not just maintain the legal relationship and keep our distance from everything else? Because distance means isolation, and isolation means you lose the protection that comes with being part of my network. He leaned forward. The deal we signed gives you financial security and operational control. The partnership gives you something more valuable, access to resources that keep you safe when people like Donovan come after you. Resources like Vincent. Exactly like Vincent. No apology in his voice. You saw what happened when Donovan tried to interfere. They're gone now, not because of courts or regulators or legitimate channels, because I have infrastructure that responds to threats before they destroy what I've built. And in exchange, we accept that you'll use that infrastructure however you see fit. In exchange, you accept that I'll use it to protect what we're building together, including you. His expression softened slightly. I meant what I said at dinner. I want to preserve what your father built, not just acquire it, actually protect it, but that means using methods your father probably wouldn't approve of. Marco almost laughed. You didn't know my father. He built this company in Brooklyn in the 70s. You think he never bent rules or made ugly compromises to survive? Maybe he did. I don't know. Ethan's voice gentled. But I know you're trying to be better than that. More legitimate, more ethical, more transparent. And I'm asking you to accept that sometimes being better means accepting help from people who aren't. The honesty in that statement seemed to surprise everyone. Sophia stood, walked to the window. The factory floor spread out below, workers moving through shifts, machinery running, 4 generations of legacy operating like it always had. If we do this, she said without turning around, if we stay partners instead of just business associates, I need one promise from you, Ethan. Name it. No more secrets that affect us directly. If you're using Vincent to handle problems related to this company, we know about it. Before it happens, not after. That's a significant ask. It means exposing you to information that could make you legally complicit. Then maybe you need to make fewer choices that require that kind of infrastructure. She turned to face him. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to include us in decisions that affect what we built together. Can you do that? Ethan considered this. Chloe could see him weighing the risks, calculating the implications, trying to decide if transparency was worth the exposure. Yes, he said finally. Full transparency on anything that affects the company or your family. You'll know before Vincent moves, not after. Even if we might object? Even then. Though I reserve the right to move forward anyway if I believe it's necessary for protection. He held her gaze. But you'll know, and you can make your own choices about how to respond. Sophia looked at Marco. Some silent communication passed between them. Then she nodded. Okay, we stay partners. But Ethan, understand something. We're watching, and if you cross lines we can't accept, we'll walk away. Deal or no deal. Understood. He stood, held out his hand. Thank you for trusting me with the truth. All of it. She shook his hand. Thank you for actually telling it. Marco walked them to the elevator. In the hallway, away from Sophia, he paused. Take care of yourself, yeah, he said to Ethan. This life you've built, it's impressive, but it's also eating you alive. I can see it. I'm fine. You're functional. That's different. Marco glanced at Chloe. And take care of her. She's good for you. Don't let this world destroy that. The elevator arrived. They rode down in silence. Outside, the car was waiting. That went better than expected, Chloe said as they pulled into traffic. Did it? They basically said they're staying partners while planning their exit strategy. They said they're watching. That's different from planning to leave. She turned to look at him. You gave them real transparency, Ethan. That matters. For now. Until the next crisis makes me choose between transparency and protection. He stared out the window. Marco's right. This life is eating me alive. Every choice costs something. Every solution creates new problems. I'm building an empire on infrastructure that requires me to become someone I'm not sure I like. Then stop. He turned to stare at her. What? Stop building, stop expanding,
Stop making choices that require Vincent's infrastructure. She leaned closer. You've already built something impressive. The Castellano deal closed. You have resources, influence, security. Maybe that's enough. It's never enough. You know that. Why not? Who decides it's not enough? She grabbed his hand. You're so focused on building bigger, going further, protecting more. But what if you just stopped and consolidated what you already have? That's not how empires work. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe empires are the wrong goal. Her voice intensified. You said you're becoming someone you don't like. So stop becoming that person. Choose differently. And do what instead? I don't know. Figure out what actually matters to you beyond power and control and strategic advantage. She squeezed his hand. You told Marco you want to preserve what his father built. What are you trying to preserve for yourself? The question seems to hit him like a physical blow. He sat back, staring at their joined hands. I don't know, he said quietly. I've spent so long building that I forgot to ask why. It was just always the goal. Build bigger, go further, control more. And now? Now I'm sitting in a car with someone who sees me clearly, who knows exactly what kind of person I am, and I'm realizing I don't know how to be anyone else. He looked at her. You asked earlier if I could be someone who deserves you while also running this empire. I don't think I can, but I also don't know how to stop running it. Then we figure it out together. Chloe moved closer. Not tonight. Not in some dramatic conversation where we solve everything, but slowly, one choice at a time, until you become someone you actually like again. You're willing to do that? Stay while I figure out if I can change? I'm willing to try. If you're actually serious about changing. She met his eyes. But Ethan, I need you to understand something. I can't be with someone who keeps choosing power over people. I can't watch you make uglier and uglier compromises while telling yourself it's necessary. Even if it is necessary? Then find a different definition of necessary. One that doesn't require Vincent disappearing people or covering up murders or operating in shadows. Her voice cracked slightly. I've seen what you're capable of. The brilliant strategy, the genuine care for people like Marco and Sophia, the willingness to be honest even when it costs you. That's the person I could love, not the one who treats human lives as strategic variables. The word love hung between them. Neither of them had said it before. It changed everything. I don't know if I can be that person all the time, Ethan said quietly, but I can try, for you and for myself. That's all I'm asking. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Just try, and let me help. They rode the rest of the way in silence. Back at the apartment, Ethan disappeared into his office. Chloe found him an hour later, staring at his computer screen. What are you doing? She asked. Restructuring. He gestured to the spreadsheets covering his monitors, looking at which parts of the empire actually need Vincent's infrastructure and which parts I've just been operating that way out of habit. And about 40% is legitimate business that doesn't require gray area solutions. Another 30% could be with some operational changes. The final 30%, he paused. That's where it gets complicated. What's in that 30%? The infrastructure that protects everything else. The connections that keep competitors at bay. The leverage that makes people take my calls. He turned to face her. I can scale back the empire. I can choose different methods, but I can't eliminate Vincent's infrastructure entirely without making myself vulnerable. What if vulnerable is okay? What if you don't need that much protection? Then people like Donovan win. They destroy things I've built. They hurt people I'm supposed to protect. Or maybe they just compete normally and sometimes you lose and that's acceptable. She moved closer. You've been operating like every threat requires maximum response for so long that you've forgotten some battles aren't worth fighting. How do I know which ones matter? You ask yourself if winning requires becoming someone you don't want to be. If the answer is yes, you let it go. Ethan stared at her. Then he started laughing, actually laughing, for the first time in days. What? Chloe asked. You, making empire building sound like therapy. He pulled her into his lap. A week ago, you were my chaotic assistant who sent voice messages to the wrong people. Now you're giving me strategic advice on how to restructure my entire operation. A week ago, you were my impossible boss who terrified me. Now you're the person I'm trying to stop from destroying himself. She wrapped her arms around his neck. We've both changed. For better or worse. Ask me in a year. He kissed her then, slow and deep, like sealing a promise they hadn't quite made yet. When they broke apart, his eyes were serious. I'm going to try, he said. Really try. To be someone who builds things without destroying himself. To use Vincent less and legitimate channels more. To make choices I can actually live with. And if you can't, if the empire requires uglier compromises than you're willing to admit, then I scale back until it doesn't. He cupped her face. You're more important than the empire, Chloe. It took me almost losing you to realize that, but I'm realizing it now. You haven't lost me. Not yet, but I could see it coming, saw you pulling away every time I made another ugly choice. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I don't want to be the kind of person you eventually can't stay with, so I'm changing, not overnight, not perfectly, but deliberately. I'll help, however I can. I know. That's what scares me. He smiled slightly. You're going to hold me accountable, make me question choices I'd rather rationalize, force me to be better even when it's harder. Exactly. Is that okay? It's terrifying, but yes, it's okay. He stood, lifting her with him. Come on, let's order food and watch something mindless and pretend to be normal people for a few hours. They made it through dinner and half a movie before Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned, then answered. Vincent, what is it? Chloe watched his expression change as he listened, saw the calculation, the strategic thinking, the automatic pivot to crisis management mode. Then he did something that surprised her. No, he said into the phone. Handle it through legitimate channels. I don't care if it takes longer or costs more. No gray area solutions on this one. A pause. Vincent arguing. I'm sure, find another way. He hung up. What was that? Chloe asked. A competitor trying to poach one of my division heads. Vincent wanted to apply pressure, make them back off through unofficial channels. Ethan set down the phone. I told him to handle it legitimately. Better offer, stronger contract, appeal to loyalty. Old-fashioned competition. And if that doesn't work, then I lose the division head and hire someone else. He pulled her closer. See? I can change. One choice at a time. That's a start. It's all I've got right now. He kissed the top of her head. But it's a start. 3 months later, Chloe sat in her new office. Director of Strategic Operations, just like Ethan had promised. Corner office, executive benefits, equity stake in the company, everything she'd earned through a week of chaos and impossible choices. The Castellano partnership was thriving. Marco had expanded production, Sofia had modernized their financial systems, and the employees were seeing benefits they'd never had access to before. The company was growing, stable, protected. Ethan had scaled back 30% of his operations, sold off divisions that required too much gray area infrastructure, consolidated what remained, shifted toward more legitimate channels. Vincent still existed, still handled problems, but less frequently and with more oversight. It wasn't perfect. There were still ugly choices, still moments when Ethan's first instinct was control and pressure and strategic manipulation. But he caught himself more often now, asked Chloe's opinion, chose differently when he could. They weren't living together anymore. Chloe had insisted on her own apartment, her own space, room to think clearly about what she wanted. But Ethan stayed over most nights, and slowly, carefully, they were building something that felt less like strategic partnership and more like actual love. Her office phone rang. Sofia. Hey, Chloe answered. How's Brooklyn? Chaotic. Good chaotic. Marco's driving everyone crazy with his expansion plans, but in a productive way. Sofia paused. I'm calling because I wanted to thank you for everything that week, for being honest when we needed it. I lied to you plenty. You protected us when we needed protecting. There's a difference. Sophia's voice softened. How's Ethan? Really? Trying, not perfectly, but genuinely trying to be different. Good. He needs someone who sees him clearly and loves him anyway. That's rare. I'm not sure I love him yet. Yes, you do. You're just scared to admit it because of what it means. Sophia laughed. But that's okay. Being scared means you understand the stakes. They talked for a few more minutes about business, about expansion plans, about the future. Then Sophia had to go handle some crisis with a supplier. Chloe hung up and turned to find Ethan standing in her doorway. Eavesdropping? She asked. Waiting for you to notice me. He came in, closed the door. I have something for you. He set a folder on her desk. Inside was a contract, terms for a new division focused on acquisitions like the Castellano deal, protecting family businesses, preserving legacies, building partnerships instead of just buying companies. I want you to run it, Ethan said. Full autonomy, your own team, budget, strategic control. You find companies worth protecting. I provide resources. We build something better than what I've been building alone. Chloe stared at the contract. This is a massive commitment. I know. That's the point. He sat on the edge of her desk. You asked me what I'm trying to preserve for myself. I've been thinking about that. And the answer is this. Us. What we're building together. A version of the empire that doesn't require destroying who I am to maintain. And if it doesn't work, if I can't find enough companies, or the model doesn't scale, or legitimate channels aren't sufficient, then we adjust. Together. He took her hand. I'm not asking you to fix me, Chloe. I'm asking you to help me build something worth preserving, something that doesn't require Vincent's infrastructure or gray area solutions or choices I hate making. She looked at the contract again, looked at him, saw the genuine hope in his expression, the vulnerability he so rarely showed. Okay, she said. I'm in, but on one condition. Name it. When I find companies worth protecting, we do it right. Full transparency with the families. No manipulation, no strategic narrative building, no performance, just honest partnership. Even if honest partnership is messier and harder to control? Especially then, because messy and hard is better than ugly and efficient. Ethan smiled. Actually smiled, full and genuine. You're going to make me a better person whether I like it or not. That's the plan. She stood, moved into his arms. I love you, by the way. Sophia was right. I've been scared to admit it. He went very still. Say that again. I love you. The real you, not the performance. The person who's trying to change, who asks hard questions, who chooses differently even when it costs him. She looked up at him. I love you, Ethan. Even though you're impossible and controlling and sometimes make terrible choices. I love you too. His voice was rough. I've loved you since that voice message, since you called me arrogant and dangerously attractive and didn't even realize you were right on both counts. That's a weird origin story for falling in love. We're weird people. He kissed her. Building something weird and messy and hopefully better than what I've built before. It will be, because we're building it together. They stood there in her office, two people who'd crossed too many lines and made too many ugly choices, holding each other like they'd discovered something worth protecting. Outside, Manhattan moved forward, the same complicated city built on layers of compromise and calculation, and people trying their best. Inside, two people were learning that sometimes the most strategic choice was the honest one. That power without principle was just control. That building an empire wasn't worth losing yourself in the process. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. There would be more ugly choices. More moments when old instincts won over new intentions. More times when Ethan reached for Vincent's infrastructure before remembering he was trying to be different. But they were trying. Together. And maybe that was enough. Maybe trying was its own kind of empire. The kind built on trust instead of leverage, on partnership instead of control, on choosing who you wanted to become, instead of accepting who the world tried to make you. A year later, Chloe's division had successfully partnered with 5 family businesses, each one different,
Each one messy, each one requiring patience and transparency and methods Ethan had never used before. It was slower than acquisition, harder than control, less predictable than strategic manipulation. It was also better, for everyone involved. Ethan proposed on the anniversary of the Castellano closing, not with a grand gesture or calculated romance, just the two of them on his terrace, the same spot where they'd stood so many times before, and a simple question. Will you marry me, knowing exactly who I am and what I'm still trying to change? Chloe looked at the ring, looked at him, looked at the city spread out below them, full of people making their own impossible choices. Yes, she said, on one condition. Of course there's a condition. He was smiling. We keep trying, both of us, to be better, to choose differently, to build something worth preserving. Deal. He slipped the ring on her finger. I love you, for seeing me clearly and staying anyway. I love you too, for letting me see clearly instead of just showing me what you want me to see. They stood there as the city glittered below, two imperfect people who'd found something worth fighting for in each other, who'd learned that the most dangerous thing wasn't the gray areas or the impossible choices or the infrastructure that operated in shadows. The most dangerous thing was losing yourself while building something that didn't actually matter. And they weren't going to make that mistake. Not anymore. Not together.